Chapter 210. The wind and rain drifted across the horizon, connecting heaven and earth into one. The surroundings were eerily cold. Amidst the violent galloping of hooves, the 60 imperial guards led by Lin Muyu passed through the cold-leaf forest and stepped into the borders of the 7th Sea Pass. Every one of them wore a silver helmet over their head and a white cloak over their face. Their heads and shoulders were already covered in snow, and even their exposed eyelashes were covered in a layer of frost. The 7th Sea Pass was far colder than Lanyan City, and could even be considered a land of bitter cold. Chirp, chirp. With a sudden tug on the reins, Lin Muyu reined in his warhorse so quickly that it almost threw him off. He lifted his cloak, revealing a handsome face covered in frost due to the severe cold. Looking up, he could see a forest of mountains in the distance, and between them was an official road that led straight to the Seven Seas province. At the end of his line of sight was a towering fortress amidst the wind and snow. They had arrived at the 7th Sea Pass. "Sire," Wei Chou pointed ahead and said, "Look, the scouts from the Tianchong Corp are coming." Not long after, silhouettes appeared one after another in the blizzard. They were all heavily armored soldiers of the Empire. Dang, dang, dang. A group of scouts drew their swords and surrounded Lin Muyu and the others. The leader of the group, a middle-aged general, shouted, "Who are you? How dare you trespass the 7 seas?" Lin Muyu took out his token and said, "The newly appointed general of the south, Lin Muyu, has come on His Majesty's edict to seek an audience with General Du Hai of the Tianchong Corp." "You're Lin Muyu?" The middle-aged general raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "To think that such a legendary character in the imperial capital would actually look like a pale-faced young man. How strange. Ha, since you're the general of the south, then come with me. I'll take you to see our clan's general." "Many thanks." The scouts turned around and raised the Tianchong Corp's flag high in the wind and snow, shouting, "Clear the way." The sound of horse hooves grew louder as about 200 riders approached the 7 Seas Pass. As they got closer and closer to the fortress, Lin Muyu looked up and could not help but marvel at the fortress's defensive capabilities. The walls were almost entirely made of huge stones and were about 50 meters tall. It was not an exaggeration to call it a natural stronghold. The walls even looked like they were made of molten steel. The walls were filled with sharp knives that were embedded into the walls, making it impossible to climb them. In other words, the only way to conquer the fortress was to break the gate. However, the gate was a giant gate made of pure iron. Ordinary attacks seemed to have no effect at all. "Open the door." The middle-aged general raised the token in his hand high up. Amidst the snowstorm, the soldiers on the walls waved their hands, and the gate slowly opened. Accompanied by the sound of metal chains twisting, the meter-thick steel gate slowly opened. Inside the city, a group of soldiers wielding sabers and swords stood in formation, ready for battle. The faces of these Sky Crest Legion soldiers were filled with fighting spirit and training. "General Lin, come with me." "Thank you." Riding on the war horses, the group of people followed the scout general along the main road in the stronghold. Wei Chou and Xia Hoseng looked left and right at everything around them. Both of them had a trace of shock in their eyes. How was this a pass? This was clearly a strong city. The scout general seemed to be able to tell what they were thinking. With a slight smile, he waved his hand and said, "General, as you can see, the 7 Seas Pass is impregnable. It is known as the world's #1 fortress. There are many weapons and rations stored in this city, enough to last an army of 90,000 for 7 years. In order to build this 7 Seas Pass, the previous emperor spent a total of 21 years. Lin Muyu nodded. "It's a miracle." "Huh." The scout general's face was filled with pride. General Du Hai is known as the leader of the Empire's 7 divine generals. He has guarded the 7 Seas Pass for nearly 10 years, and there has never been a single mishap. 10 years. Lin Muyu was stunned. The Empire's 7 divine generals? That's right. The scout general rubbed his nose awkwardly and said with a smile. But this title was decided by the brothers in the army. His Majesty hasn't approved it yet. Just treat it as a joke. Lin Muyu's interest was piqued. She asked, "May I ask which 7 generals are they?" According to the order of ranking, they are Du Hai, Xiang Yu, Feng Jixing, Qin Lei, Feng Tianan, Ji Yao, Lin Yu. My great general's ranking is even higher than Xiang Wentian's descendant, Xiang Yu. Lin Muyu smiled and didn't say much. However, she was even more interested in this Du Hai. What kind of person would the current #1 general of the Qin Empire be like? At this moment, they arrived at the second wall of the Seven Seas Pass. A soldier's voice came from above. Open the Tiger Gate. Creak. The sound of metal chains twisting was extremely ear-piercing. The gate inlaid with a golden tiger head slowly rose. Lin Muyu and the others quickly urged their horses in. Finally, they arrived at the center of the fortress. Inside the Tiger Gate was a large hall. Although it was solemn and dignified, it could also be said to be simple. Piles of flames illuminated the interior of the hall brightly. On both sides of the hall were soldiers of the Imperial Guard camped with their hands on the hilts of their swords. Lin Muyu's gaze swept across the hall. There were at least 3,000 of them. It was truly a tight security. In the center of the hall, a group of generals stood on both sides, drinking wine. The scout general walked forward and reported, Great General, General of the South Lin Muyu of Lanyan City, requests an audience with His Majesty's Imperial Edict. Let him in. It's been hard on you. General Lu, you may leave. Yes, Great General. Lin Muyu led Wei Chou and Xiahou in. Immediately, the Tianchong army generals on both sides glared at them, creating an invisible pressure. Some of these generals even had the rank of captaincy, with 2 golden hexagrams on their necks. It was truly a frightening sight. The 40-year-old general sitting in the middle had 3 golden hexagrams and 7 to 8 scars crisscrossed across his face. Staring at Lin Muyu with a fiery gaze, he suddenly stood up, cupped his fists and said with a smile, General Lin has come from afar. Please forgive Du Hai for not welcoming you earlier. Lin Muyu cupped his fists respectfully and said, Great General, please forgive this subordinate. I have come with His Majesty's Imperial Edict. Please receive it, Great General. Yes. At the mention of His Majesty, the wild and untamed look on Du Hai's face was instantly swept away. He hurriedly walked up to Lin Muyu and knelt down on one knee, cupped his fists and said, General Du Hai receives the Imperial Edict. The other 20-odd generals also knelt down one after another, their faces filled with solemnity. Lin Muyu took out the Imperial Edict and read it out. Great General Du Hai is to assign 20,000 elite soldiers to General Lin Muyu of the South to head to Tsangnan Province to exterminate the remnants of the House of Chivalry in the mountains. The time limit is 60 days. Regardless of whether the mission is exterminated or not, Lin Muyu must return the 20,000 soldiers to the Seven Seas Pass. Du Hai is not to be negligent in any matter that is required. Du Hai was stunned. Raising his head, he asked, His Majesty wants this general to lend you soldiers? Lin Muyu nodded. Yes, General. Please receive the Imperial Edict? Yes. Du Hai raised his hand to receive the Imperial Edict. After reading it, he smiled and said, General Lin Muyu is a young hero. How rare. To think that when I, Du Hai, was your age, I was still a small lieutenant, but General has already become a general of a town and received His Majesty's favor. You can command 20,000 soldiers. Many of the commanders in the Empire's army are not as powerful as you. How enviable. Lin Muyu did not know how to respond to his lukewarm words, and could only reply respectfully. Great General, you are flattering me. I am only indebted to His Majesty's undeserved favor. May I know when Great General will be able to assign these 20,000 elites to me? There is no hurry. 20,000 people is not a small number. We need to carefully count them. Moreover, I still need to provide war horses, weapons, rations and many other matters for these 20,000 soldiers. I will hand them over tomorrow morning. What does General Lin think? Good. Thank you, Great General. You're welcome. We are all serving the Empire. There is no need to distinguish between us. Come, General Lin and the other 2 generals, have a seat. The weather is cold. Drink a cup of wine to warm your body. Thank you. It was already dusk, and everyone was slightly tipsy. Some of the generals were already dead drunk. Lin Muyu remained clear-headed the entire time. Right at this moment, Wei Chou walked over and whispered into his ear. Master, this subordinate just went down to check on the process of selecting soldiers. They are simply bullying us too much. They only gave us some old soldiers and new soldiers. Some of the old soldiers are already close to 60 years old. How can they still fight? Are you sure? Absolutely. Wei Chou raised his head and glanced at Du Hai. This empire's great general is only SOC. Lin Muyu raised her hand and said, "All right, let's not talk about it anymore. If they are veterans, then so be it. It's not a big deal. Veterans are also a kind of intangible wealth. It's fine. I was worried that they wouldn't be willing to lend me their men. It's already good enough that they are willing to lend me their men. After all, these 90,000 men are also Du Hai's flesh and blood." Yes, my lord is right. After drinking for a while, Du Hai's eyes looked drowsy. He smiled and said, "Dare I ask General Lin, have you ever led troops in the empire before?" Lin Muyu shook her head. "No." "Oh." Du Hai couldn't help but smile and said, "His Majesty actually dares to hand over 20,000 men to someone who has never led troops before. As expected, he thinks very highly of you." As he said this, he muttered to himself for a moment before smiling. "General Lin, I have something to say, but I'm not sure if I should say it." "Great General, please speak." Since General has never led troops before, then this old man will choose someone from the army to join the army. This person will follow the army and give you advice. How about it? This. Lin Muyu thought for a moment. Seeing Du Hai's "if you don't let me lead, I won't give you any men" look, she could only nod helplessly. "All right then, as General wishes." "Ha, that's good." At this time, everyone had eaten and drank to their fill. Du Hai immediately stood up and said, "Generals, since you have eaten and drunk your fill, then return to your camps to rest. Tomorrow morning, you will wake up to train the troops." "Yes, General." The group of generals stood up and took their leave. "General Lin Muyu, please stay," Du Hai suddenly said with a smile. Lin Muyu didn't know what he was up to. She stood there in shock and watched as Wei Chou and Xia Hosang went to wait outside the tent. "Great General, what's the matter?" he asked. Du Hai muttered to himself, his eyes filled with coldness. He sneered and said, "The 90,000 men in the 7 seas were raised by me, Du Hai. It can be said that every one of them is my brother. To ask me to hand over these brothers of mine, I really can't bear to. Lin Muyu, if you want my 20,000 men, that's fine. But first, I Du Hai see what you're really capable of." "What do you think?" Lin Muyu's eyes were filled with savagery. She knew that things wouldn't go so smoothly. Du Hai laughed and raised his hand to draw a long saber into his hand. He said, "Take 3 of my saber strikes. If you can't even take these 3 strikes, then there's no need for you to lead your troops into battle." "All right." Lin Muyu raised her hand and unsheathed the dragon spirit sword. The sound of the sword resonated around the tent. "Not good, they're going to make a move," Wei Chou said with a frown. Xia Hosang took a deep breath and said, "Don't worry. Although Du Hai is at the 3rd heaven of the heaven state, my lord might not lose. Also, Du Hai wouldn't dare to do anything to Lord. I hope so." Chapter 211. Heh. With a shout, Du Hai's entire aura changed rapidly. Endless Do Qi surged out of his body and his long saber let out a series of sharp whistles. One after another, milky white Do Qi spirits surrounded the long saber. This was the sign of the 3rd heaven of the heavenly realm, condensing Do Qi. Do Qi spirit was the Do Qi spirit, and could greatly increase the destructive power of Do Qi. This was also the sharpness of the 3rd heaven of the heavenly realm. Du Hai's eyes were filled with arrogance as he laughed. "My saber technique is not like Feng Jixing's wind saber technique. Du Hai's saber technique is a school of its own and is only refined for killing. Come, take my first saber, 1,000 army chaos." A mighty strike swept over. Du Hai's attack was definitely not simple. Lin Muyu could feel the endless power contained in this saber, and did not dare to be careless. She quickly raised her Do Qi to the limit and quickly added on the black tortoise shell, dragon scale wall and green rock armor. A thick Do Qi armor also appeared on the surface of her body. At the same time, she held the dragon soul sword with both hands and raised it vertically. Her Do Qi surged to block Du Hai's attack. Bang! There was a loud sound of energy colliding. The black tortoise shell instantly shattered and cracks appeared on the dragon scale wall. As expected, Defense alone was not enough to block Du Hai's attack. The long saber collided with the dragon soul sword with a ding sound. Lin Muyu was forced to take a few steps back. She quickly lowered her center of gravity and stood firmly. She looked at Du Hai with a serious expression. The black tortoise shell quickly reformed under the recovery ability. However, it seemed that it was too late to block Du Hai's second attack. Oh! Seeing that Lin Muyu had actually received the first attack unscathed, a trace of astonishment flashed across Du Hai's face. He said, "One of the 4 heroes of Lanyan, Lin Muyu is indeed not bad. Hey, take my second saber, battle formation dance." The long saber was waved for the second time. This time, a total of 4 douqi were condensed. The long saber descended from the sky and quickly blew out the surrounding lights. It also plunged the entire central army hall into darkness. However, the dragon spirit sword in Lin Muyu's hand shone brightly. This time he did not intend to defend, nor could he defend at all. The 7 luminaries' profound energy rapidly flowed into the longsword, and the blood-colored demonic energy quickly lingered around the blade. Lin Muyu lowered her body slightly, and suddenly exploded. The longsword rushed upwards, and this move was very similar to Feng Jixing's devil blade swallowing heaven. In fact, it was more or less stolen from Feng Jixing. Clang! A dazzling spark exploded in the air. The dragon spirit sword was so sharp that it actually forcefully deflected Du Hai's second attack. However, Lin Muyu did not feel good. Both her arms were numb, and the blood in her body was in turmoil. She spun and landed on the ground. She retreated more than 10 meters and hit a stone pillar before stabilizing herself. On the other hand, Du Hai was much calmer. He floated to the ground, and the long saber in his hand was still enshrouded with douqi. He looked at Lin Muyu without a change in expression. However, Du Hai's heart was not as calm as he looked on the surface. At this moment, his heart was in turmoil. He did not know when such a young expert had risen within the borders of the empire. In terms of cultivation, he was not the least bit inferior to Feng Jixing and Qin Lei. It was no wonder that this brat could be ranked second among the wind, rain, thunder, and lightning 4 generals. Furthermore, goddammit, this brat actually used a gourd. What kind of martial spirit was that? In Du Hai's view of the world, plant-type martial spirits were all trash. The strongest plant-type martial spirit was the heavenly dragon vine of the Ouyang branch of the Heaven's Pivot province. But what the hell was this brat's gourd? For a moment, Du Hai's understanding of martial spirits had been subverted. After the subversion, it brought about fury. He suddenly swung the saber in his hand to one side, and the 5 douling once again encircled the blade. He chuckled and said, "General Lin's cultivation is indeed astonishing. Come, please receive this old man's third slash, beheading the chaotic army." Wang. The long saber in Du Hai's hand actually started to spin, bringing with it a spiral force. He had already released his hand, and the douqi in his palm maintained the connection with the saber. Impressively, this was the legendary, using qi to control the saber. Lin Muyu was shocked. This move seemed to achieve the same result as her own dragon flame spiral break, using the spiral force to penetrate the opponent's defense. However, by using this move, did Du Hai have the intention to kill her? No matter what, she mustn't die. In the next moment, Lin Muyu released her palm. Instantly, a raging flame pulled the dragon's soul sword, and it started spinning rapidly in the air. It was almost exactly the same as Du Hai's move. The golden gourd glowed brilliantly, providing a large amount of flame energy to Lin Muyu. At the same time, the constellation of all living beings was condensed on the blade. She had to use her true strength. Otherwise, dying under this slash from Du Hai wouldn't be worth it. Dragon Flame Spiral Break plus 3 Luminaries Calamity. The 2 of them raised their strength to their peak, causing the entire main hall to be illuminated by the flames and the white light from the douqi. In fact, the gale generated by the douqi blew open the curtains of the main tent. The soldiers outside looked over and were all dumbfounded as they started to discuss among themselves. Heavens, this is the first time I've seen the great general facing an enemy so seriously. That Lin Muyu brat is really not simple. He actually managed to force the great general to use his qi to control the saber. I think that Lin Muyu is finished. The great general's slash will definitely chop off his head. Not necessarily. That brat's aura doesn't lose to the great general at all. Right at this moment, the saber and sword finally clashed with destructive force, and a resounding boom rang out as powerful battle spirits wreaked havoc before crashing directly into Lin Muyu's suit of battle armor. Puffed! He spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated with his sword. He crashed heavily into a stone pillar and fell to the ground. He knelt on one knee and looked extremely pathetic. Du Hai, on the other hand, stood majestically at his original position. With a kung sound, the long blade spun rapidly in the air and pierced into the stone floor in front of him. The spiraling force of the two of them surged up into the sky, directly tearing off the roof of the Central Army Hall. Pieces of tiles fell down with a crackling sound, but were all bounced off by Du Hai's dochi armor. Damn it, this stinking brat. Du Hai's face was a little pale. It was true that he had managed to force Lin Muyu back, but he didn't even have the strength to wield his saber. He had challenged Lin Muyu to a battle of a higher cultivation rank than him, but this was the outcome that he had been dealt, so it appeared that he had lost. Slap! Du Hai forcefully swallowed the blood that was welling up in his throat as he grabbed onto his saber with one hand. General Lin Muyu, are you alright? Lin Muyu had the recovery ability of the Golden Gourd, and her martial soul was constantly healing her body, so she naturally wasn't too severely injured. She stood up with her sword in her hand and cupped her fist in a salute with a smile. Thank you for your guidance, great general. I've lost. Lin Muyu's words were very magnanimous, causing Du Hai to feel a little ashamed. However, he couldn't lose face for the great general, so he walked forward and patted Lin Muyu on the shoulder. Smiling, he said, among the younger generation, there are less than 3 people who have the same level of cultivation as you, General. Work hard and you will also become a famous general of this generation. Lin Muyu nodded humbly, saying, Great General, this general has suffered some internal injuries and will return to the barracks to rest and recover. Good. Men, bring General Lin Muyu back to the barracks to rest. This battle had actually allowed Lin Muyu to gain some goodwill from Du Hai, so it seemed like it was worth it. After a night, in the early hours of the next morning, Lin Muyu's strength had once again reached its peak. Her injuries had completely healed, and after the battle with Du Hai, her strength seemed to have increased by a notch. Perhaps this was how experts were like, only through repeated life and death experiences could they improve. The wind and snow had already stopped, and the 20,000-strong army in the stronghold had already finished their preparations. Of these 20,000 people, there were 5,000 cavalry, while the other 15,000 were foot soldiers. Their marching speed wasn't very fast, and based on the speed of 100 li a day, it would probably take more than half a month for them to reach Cangnan province. This caused Lin Muyu to have a headache. It looked like she would have to split her forces, with the cavalry leading the way and the foot soldiers bringing up the rear. General, this is the tiger tally, please take good care of it. A deputy general handed the pale gold tiger tally to Lin Muyu. If she wanted to command this 20,000-strong army, she would have to rely on this small tiger tally. Come to think of it, it was really laughable. Lin Muyu nodded, her gaze landing on the army. Just as Wei Chou had said, at least 30% of this group of people were veterans, and 30% were new soldiers. Only the remaining 40% could be considered as true elites, but she couldn't care too much about it. At this moment, a man dressed in a black robe with 2 gold stars on his collar urged his horse over. He looked to be around 30 years of age, with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. Cupping his fists, he said respectfully, General Lin, this one is Shen Yang, one of the 11 adjunct officers of the Tianchong army, with the rank of Chiliarch. I'm here to await your orders. This person was the adjunct sent by Du Hai. Lin Muyu smiled and cupped his fists, saying, You've worked hard, Lord Shen. Please enter the ranks. Thank you, General. Lin Muyu's spirit meridian art fluctuated slightly, and she immediately saw through this Shen Yang's strength. He was only a battle spirit, at the second layer of the mortal realm. There wasn't much difference between him and the average person. It seemed like this guy relied on his intelligence to make a living. General, when do we set off? Shen Yang asked respectfully. Lin Muyu said, We set off immediately. 5,000 cavalry with 5 days' worth of rations will go first, followed by 15,000 infantry. What does Lord Xinyang think? Xinyang was startled, saying, General wants to split the army? Yes, otherwise we won't be able to make it to the 60-day deadline. Very well. Then Lord will lead the cavalry first, and this subordinate will lead the infantry. Where should we rendezvous? Silver Fir City. Yes. Silver Fir City was a small city close to the north of Seongnan Province, but it was also the city closest to the Guild of Chivalry's headquarters in Seongnan Province. Choosing Silver Fir City as the resting point for this 20,000-strong army was definitely the right choice. Early in the morning, the sound of iron hooves rang out. 5,000-plus cavalry under the personal command of Lin Muyu swiftly left the Fortress of Seven Seas, heading straight for the southeast. Xinyang stayed behind to dispatch the infantry out of the city. He raised his head and glanced at the second floor of the central hall. Du Hai was standing there, looking at him with eyes like torches. Don't worry, great general. Xinyang cupped his fists and smiled, saying, This subordinate will definitely bring them all back. The corner of Du Hai's mouth rose. Then I'll have to trouble Lord Adjunct. Chapter 212. 2 days later, the cavalry regiment passed by dragon-seeking forests Dragon Rock Mountain. Looking from afar, the 3 blood-red words Dragon Rock Mountain appeared on the towering stone wall. From afar, they could almost see the fluttering flag on Dragon Rock. It was the flag of the Longdan army camp. At the same time, at the foot of Dragon Rock Mountain, the scene of a village appeared. All the houses were newly built, and many civilians had moved here. There was even a market in the village center at noon. The accompanying Tianchong army captaincy, Qiying, looked up at Dragon Rock Mountain and asked, General, it is said that there is a mercenary group called Longdan Army Camp on this mountain range. They are quite powerful. Since we are passing by, should we go up the mountain and borrow some weapons and provisions from this Longdan army camp? He grinned wickedly. Lin Muyu shook her head. No need. You can camp at the foot of the mountain and rest for a while. I will go up the mountain to discuss with the Longdan army camp and invite them to go to Seongnan Province to destroy the House of Chivalry. Otherwise, I'm afraid we may not be able to do it with just our 5,000 cavalry. What? Qiying was stunned and hurriedly said, General, you must not. Although this Longdan army camp is registered in the capital, but the mercenaries are cruel and arrogant. I'm afraid it will be dangerous for you to go up the mountain alone. Don't worry, it will be fine. Set up camp here, and do not disturb the civilians along the way. Yes. General, please be careful. Okay. Lin Muyu only led Wei Chou and Xiahou Sang up the mountain. However, she found that the Longdan army camp was getting stronger and stronger. The mercenaries were no longer as unruly as before. Instead, they were in high spirits. Luo Yu and Fengxi's training methods were evident. Not long after, Luo Yu and Fengxi walked out of the meeting hall with radiant faces. They greeted her with a respectful smile. Madam, you are here. Yes. Lin Muyu nodded and asked, How is the development of the Longdan army camp recently? Luo Yu smiled and said, Everything is fine. We've cleared out all the wandering mercenary groups and the House of Chivalry's forces within a 500-mile radius, excluding the Flame Dragon mercenary group. We've already expanded our numbers to 5,417 people. More than 5,000. Lin Muyu grinned from ear to ear. How about the war horses and weapons? Luo Yu cupped his fists and said, Everyone is equipped with a warhorse and a weapon of varying lengths. These 5,000 people are cavalry when mounted and infantry when dismounted. Don't worry about their battle prowess. That's good. Lin Muyu smiled complacently and said, Immediately select 5,000 people, bring 3 days' worth of dry rations, and follow me into Seongnan Province to train the troops. Oh. Luo Yu was stunned. Where does Sir want to attack? Purge all the forces of the House of Chivalry in Seongnan Province. So that's how it is. This subordinate will immediately gather the troops. All right. Less than an hour later, 5,000 elite Longdan army camp mercenaries had gathered at the top of the mountain, all mounted on their horses. The scale was unprecedented. and these people's weapons and war horses were even better than the Tianchong armies. It was good to be rich. Descend the mountain. Raising the flag, the dragon-shaped image fluttered in the air. It was truly a beautiful sight. When they reached the foot of the mountain, Qiying raised his spear and mounted his horse from afar, shouting, "The enemy is attacking, prepare to defend." The Tianchong army's heavy cavalry all mounted their horses, holding their spears to the top of their war horses' heads, each of them brimming with killing intent, as they prepared to welcome the attack from the Longdan army camp. But Lin Muyu urged her horse forward, shouting, "General Qiying, they're on our side, it's fine." Qiying was surprised, then smiled. "General is so brave, you really managed to convince these Longdan army camp mercenaries?" Wei Chou came forward, smiling faintly. "They're your men to begin with, there's no need to convince them. All right, let's go to Kathaya City." Yes. Just like that, the 10,000 heavy cavalry left the borders of Lanyan City and headed straight for Tsangnan Province. 2 days later, they entered Tsangnan Province, and could already see the small city of Cathay City in the distance. 2 messengers galloped over to inform the new city lord. Lin Muyu had mixed feelings. The last time she'd left Kathaya City, she and Chu Yao had fled from Huatian and his son's pursuit. She hadn't expected that she'd come to Kathaya City with over 10,000 men, and that she'd even become the general of the south. Not long after, a group of people galloped out of the city, one dressed in the garb of a civil official, the other a military official. This humble one is the governor of Kathaya City, Zhang Yida. "Greetings, my lord." This humble one is the commander of Kathaya City's garrison, Wang He. "Greetings, general." Both of them wore extremely respectful expressions, and Lin Muyu didn't find it strange at all. The Qin Empire was very strict about the hierarchy of military ranks, and her position as the general of the south was almost godlike in this small city. Zhang Yida's face was full of flattery as he dismounted and kneeled on the ground, smiling. "My lord, as the emperor's adopted son, it is this lowly one's greatest honor to have you grace Kathaya City with your presence. If my lord does not mind, please follow this lowly one into the city. This lowly one has already prepared a feast to welcome my lord's arrival." Wang He also cupped his fists. "Please enter the city, my lord." Their words and actions were very cordial, but Lin Muyu only felt boundless coldness from them. She smiled slightly. "There's no need, the army will not enter the city, and we will not disturb the citizens. We will set up camp in the 7-star forest outside the city. City governor, please immediately prepare food, water, and horse rations for us. I'll be relying on you for this." Zhang Yida was stunned. "My lord, you are not entering the city?" "Yes, I am not entering the city." Lin Muyu respectfully cupped her fists and smiled. "I will have to trouble the governor and General Wang He. Please immediately prepare for us." "Yes." Zhang Yida and Wang He were flabbergasted, and they hurriedly led their men away. Lin Muyu watched them leave, indifferently saying, "Set up camp in the 7-star forest nearby. Do not occupy the main road. Prepare to cook, and rest well today. We will attack the headquarters of the House of Chivalry tomorrow morning." Qiying cupped his fists respectfully and said, "Yes, general." At night, the sky was filled with stars and the temperature dropped sharply. It seemed like it was going to snow again. The men Lin Muyu had brought with her this time were all cavalry, and they had to end the battle as quickly as possible. Otherwise, even the fodder for the war horses would be a huge problem. Kathaya City was just a small city, and it could support 10,000 war horses for a day or two, but it would be a stretch to say the least for a month. Under the flickering firelight, Wei Chou unfurled a map of Tsangnan Province and pointed at the red mark on it, saying, "The headquarters of Tsangnan Province is located on this mountain ridge called Fire Axe Mountain. Fire Axe Mountain is not tall, but its terrain is extremely steep and shaped like a fire axe, hence the name. According to my intelligence, there are currently more than 4,200 members of the House of Chivalry on Fire Axe Mountain, 1 Grand Wandering Chess Envoy, and 2 Wandering Chess Envoys." Cough cough. "My lord, you killed one of the Wandering Chess Envoys last time, so these people should hate us very much," Qiying said. "The House of Chivalry has many eyes and ears. They will definitely know that we have come to Kathaya City in such a grandiose manner, so we must plan slowly. I think. Why don't we wait for Lord Shenyang to arrive with 15,000 foot soldiers and attack together? It's too late. Lin Muyu shook her head. By the time the foot soldiers arrive, it will be too late. Send some people to scout the terrain and gather intelligence tonight, and prevent them from setting up an ambush along the way. Tomorrow morning, we will attack the mountain. Yes. After Qi Ying and the other generals dispersed, Wei Chao's eyes dimmed as he asked, "My lord, why are you in such a hurry to attack the mountain? This doesn't seem like your personality." Lin Muyu exhaled a mouthful of mist, saying, "If we delay, the situation will change. The House of Chivalry and Five Valleys City are inextricably linked, so we must finish this battle quickly. Otherwise, if Five Valleys City reacts, it will not be so easy for us to destroy the House of Chivalry. Governor Hu Tianning dares to openly defend the House of Chivalry. No, he doesn't dare, but he won't let things go too smoothly for us. Yes, your subordinate understands." The next morning, the army of 10,000 set off for Fire Axe Mountain. The mountain was less than 200 li from Kathaya City, and only half a day's journey for cavalry. Lin Muyu's gaze fell on the crowd. The Sky Rush Army's heavy cavalry were equipped with small round shields, long spears and sharp swords, and were skilled in close combat. The heavy cavalry of the Longdan army camp were equipped with powerful bows. This was an absolute advantage. If they wanted to kill without losing any casualties, they had to be equipped with long-range weapons. The mercenaries of the Longdan army camp were skilled with bows and horses, and seemed more suited to fighting in the mountains. Along the way, the scouts frequently reported that the terrain had been surveyed, and it was almost impossible for the House of Chivalry to ambush them. They arrived at the foot of Fire Axe Mountain before noon. Looking up, Fire Axe Mountain looked like a fiery red battle axe lying between heaven and earth. The rocks were crimson, and banners fluttered in the air in the middle of the mountain. Houses stood in great numbers, and a stone fortress was built at the mountain gate to defend against any invasion. It was difficult for war horses to travel in the mountains, much less on a 45-degree slope. Qi Ying's brows furrowed. "General, how do we attack?" "There is no need to attack." Lin Muyu rode on a warhorse and smiled. "I have already received information that although there is sufficient food on the mountain, water is brought up from the spring at the foot of the mountain. Their headquarters has more than 4,000 soldiers, and the daily consumption of water is very large. If we surround them and do not attack, they will definitely descend the mountain to fight us within 3 days." As she said that, Lin Muyu smiled, and said with confidence, "They chose Fire Axe Mountain as their base, but they forgot about the water source. They are digging their own graves." Qi Ying was shocked, and cupped his fists. "I did not expect General to be so powerful at such a young age. No need to flatter me." Lin Muyu raised her hand, and said, "Surround the mountain, and have the archers ready at any time. Wait for them to descend the mountain themselves." "Yes, General." Everyone's face was filled with joy. Originally, many of the soldiers thought that forcefully attacking the mountain would result in heavy losses, but now it seemed that with a wise commander like Lin Muyu, there was no need for them to suffer heavy losses. The art of war had said that an army was based on food, but if it was water, it would be the same. Lin Muyu thought that he only had a superficial understanding of the art of war, but compared to the great wandering chess envoy on the mountain, he could be said to have a deep understanding of the art of war. Chapter 213. In the blink of an eye, a day had passed. The people of the House of Chivalry had only managed to shoot a few arrows down the mountain. They could not even hit the feet of the Longdan army camp mercenaries before they fell to the ground powerlessly. However, this kind of provocation came again and again, as if they were very tired. At dusk, there was a sudden commotion on the mountain. The mountain gate opened wide, and about 100 or so rangers roared as they charged down the mountain on their warhorses. "Release the arrows." Under Luo Yu's order, the Longdan army camp and Tianchong army that were lying in ambush in the forest all fired their arrows. In an instant, the 100 or so people who came down from the mountain screamed and fell to the ground. Only a few managed to escape. Wei Chou led a horse over and pointed at the wooden bucket on the horses, but saying, "As my lord expected, the water on the mountain has already dried up. This group of people wants to kill their way out and snatch the water. Lin Muyu nodded. Yes, keep the archers on guard and dig a trap behind the first line of defense. Wait for their next wave of attack. Qi Ying was stunned. General, how can you be so sure that they will come down the mountain a second time to snatch the water? Lin Muyu smiled confidently. It's very simple. These 100 or so people are just to test how many people we have surrounding the Fire Axe Mountain. In the next wave of attack, they will use at least 2,000 people. Therefore, our first line of archers will not be able to defend at all. They will dig a trap to ensure that our losses are minimized. So that's how it is. Qi Ying raised her eyebrows and smiled. General is really meticulous. At this time, a white bird suddenly flew over their heads, the sound of its wings flapping faintly. Lin Muyu suddenly raised her head, her heart moved, and she said, Wei Qiu, shoot it down. Yes. Wei Qiu raised his hand and knocked an arrow. With a so sound, the demon-devouring bow shot an arrow into the sky and killed the bird in the blink of an eye. A soldier of the Tianchong army picked up the bird's corpse and handed it over. General. Lin Muyu took the bird corpse and looked at its feet. Sure enough, there was a small letter tube. She took out a piece of paper and saw a few simple words written on it. Reinforcements will arrive in 2 days. Wei Qiu frowned. Sir, will the House of Chivalry send reinforcements? Could it be the people from their branch altar? I don't know. Lin Muyu felt a burst of anger and said, Wei Qiu, this messenger bird is coming from the direction of Five Valleys City. Arrange for the sharpshooters in the camp to watch this direction day and night. Shoot down any messenger bird that flies by. Wei Qiu smiled and nodded. Understood. In the blink of an eye, it was night. The sky was filled with dark clouds and the moon and stars were dim. Even Qi Ying could feel the biting cold murderous intent. This night will not be easy. Lin Muyu warmed himself by the bonfire and smiled. Let everyone be more spirited. Yes. In the early hours of the morning, a loud noise came from the mountain. The sound of horse hooves was loud. The House of Chivalry was attacking again. The moment the mountain gate opened, countless rangers with wooden shields and longswords rushed in. Their faces were full of anger as they shouted, Kill! Kill these dogs of the Empire! There were about 1,500 rangers on foot, and behind them were about 500 cavalrymen. It seemed like they wanted to use the wooden shields to wear down the arrows, and then the cavalrymen would charge. Lin Muyu stood under a towering tree, a thin layer of frost on his shoulders. He sneered. In your dreams. Qi Ying mounted his horse and smiled. General, it's our turn to charge now, right? Yes, we will fight when they break through the second blockade. Yes. The torches on the Fire Axe Mountain were connected, and a large number of rangers charged out. Their battle cries shook the heavens, and their momentum was terrifying. Fire! Wei Qiu shouted again. The longbow in his hand quickly shot out an arrow made of light. With a whoosh, it pierced through the bodies of 3 rangers. In the entire army, perhaps only Wei Qiu had such arm strength and accuracy. Squeak squeak. The bow in Lin Muyu's hand let out a cry of pain. Suddenly, an arrow was shot out. The arrowhead was imbued with pure do qi, and it directly pierced through a ranger's wooden shield. The explosive power of the arrow was shocking. General is brave. The group of Tianchong soldiers were also very encouraged. Arrows rained down, and in the blink of an eye, the people from the House of Chivalry were killed. However, most of the arrows landed on the wooden shields, and did not cause any damage. In the blink of an eye, the people from the House of Chivalry were within 20 meters of them. Retreat! Lin Muyu ordered. At the same time, she raised her hand and threw out 4 little magic sonar blades. They flew in 4 different directions, and became invisible. After piercing through the bodies of several rangers, Lin Muyu slowly retracted her strength. Suddenly, the little magic sonar blades rotated rapidly in the air to form a magic sonar blade. With a schwa-schwa sound, it killed another dozen people in the crowd before flying back. Under the light of the torches, a ranger surrounded by pure Jin Qi shouted, Kill! Kill these dogs of the Empire! The sound of hooves could be heard. The cavalry of the House of Chivalry had also arrived. They brandished their spears and charged forward. However, when they reached the second blockade, They successively charged into the trap. Screams of pain rang out as hundreds of people and horses fell into the trap that had been dug beforehand. The Tianchong soldiers and Longdan army camp soldiers naturally rushed forward and stabbed with their spears. Blood splattered everywhere. They had truly killed everyone. Swoosh! Lin Muyu took out the pear blossom spear from her qiankuan pouch. With a shake of the spear shaft, the spear had instantly produced a pear blossom that was enshrouded in icy mist in the night sky. Lin Muyu shouted in a low voice, "Kill!" The sound of hooves could be heard. They had avoided the trap area. Under his leadership, more than 1,000 cavalrymen from Longdan army camp charged forward. Before they even got close, they had already launched a round of spear-piercing attacks. The destructive power of the spear was far greater than that of the arrows. The enemies were immediately scared out of their wits. When it came to close combat, the enemies were already scared out of their wits and became the targets of the cavalrymen. The air was filled with the thick smell of blood. This battle lasted for more than an hour before it ended. The final result was that the House of Chivalry had lost another game envoy. Only about 200 of the defeated soldiers managed to escape up the mountain. The mountain path was littered with corpses. It was a tragic sight. Wei Chao's face was filled with excitement. He smiled and said, "This time we will teach these traitors a lesson." Qiying wiped the blood off her spear and said proudly, "I'm afraid they won't dare to go down the mountain to fetch water anymore." "How many men did we lose?" Lin Muyu asked as he rode past with his pear blossom spear in hand. Luo Yu cupped his fists and said, "The Longdan army camp lost close to 20 men, and the Tianchong army lost close to 100 men. It's all thanks to Sir's divine foresight. Otherwise, we would have lost even more men." Got it, Lin Muyu frowned. Actually, he had planned to have 0 casualties. Unfortunately, there were too many factors that could have led to the development of the situation. "All right, let's all rest. They won't make any moves tonight." "Yes, General." That night, Lin Muyu slept very soundly. Lying in the tent, Lin Muyu allowed the forging dragon bone remnants Doqi to circulate around his body. His spirit pulse art also extended on its own, as if it had a spirit of its own, permeating into everything in the world. At this moment, heaven, earth, and man formed a kind of harmony, giving him a feeling of comfort throughout his entire body in his sleep. "Sir, bad news." Wei Chao's voice suddenly came from outside. Lin Muyu got up, grabbed his sword, and walked out of the tent. "What's wrong?" Wei Chao's expression was solemn as he said, "This morning, a group of Imperial troops from the Cloud Commandery appeared around the Fire Axe Mountain and surrounded us from the outside. I don't know why." "Have you negotiated with them?" "Not yet." "Follow me." "Yes." Getting on his horse, he led a group of royal guards to the periphery. When Lin Muyu arrived, he could already see a group of people wearing imperial armor guarding the periphery, facing off against the Longdan army camp and Tianchong army inside. "What's going on?" Lin Muyu walked forward and raised his eyebrows. "Who is your person in charge?" The shield slowly moved away, and a man dressed in an official's attire rode out. He cupped his fists. "I am the governor of the Cloud Commandery, Bai Luo." "Greetings, Madam Lin Muyu." "Bai Luo, why are you surrounding this place with the soldiers of the Cloud Commandery?" Lin Muyu suppressed her anger and asked. Bai Luo smiled. "Madam, this Fire Axe Mountain is originally under the jurisdiction of the Cloud Commandery. Today, a group of mercenaries from the Dragon Rocky Mountain suddenly appeared. As the local governor, I naturally have to bring my troops here to investigate." Lin Muyu took out the token. "The token of the Zhenan General is here. Now that you have seen it, withdraw your troops." "No, madam." "No." "What do you mean?" Bai Luo's face was still full of smiles. He bowed and said, "The Cloud Commandery is under the jurisdiction of the Five Valleys City. If there is a battle in my territory, I am afraid that the civilians will be implicated. So, before the troops from the Five Valleys City arrive, I must not withdraw my troops. Otherwise, if the governor blames me, I, a small governor of the Cloud Commandery, cannot bear the consequences." Lin Muyu was so angry that she gritted her teeth. Wei Chou said in a low voice, "This old fox. Usually, when mercenaries fight to the death, He does not do anything. Now he dares to surround us. How dare he? Lin Muyu rode her horse forward slowly. Looking at Bai Luo's old face, she smiled. Governor, the way you surround us makes me suspect that you are in cahoots with the House of Chivalry. If that is the case, once I report this to His Majesty, I am afraid you will not be able to be the governor anymore. Bai Luo shuddered. Sir, I'm just following the rules, please don't make things difficult for me. If it's really as you said, please take out the Imperial Emperor's edict. I won't dare to disobey and retreat immediately. Lin Muyu was stunned. She could not help but curse in her heart. This old fox must have known that the Imperial edict was in Du Hai's hands. That was why he was making things difficult for her. If you want to surround us, then surround us. Lin Muyu abruptly pulled out his long sword and swept it across the ground. His dochi raged and dust flew into the air. Immediately, a deep pit appeared in front of him. He looked coldly at the group of Yinzhong commandery soldiers in front of him and coldly ordered. Anyone who dares to cross this line, kill them on the spot. Don't hold back. He looked deeply at Bai Luo and sneered. I know what you are thinking. Just you wait, I will let you get what you want. Bai Luo was stunned. Unease appeared on his face. Chapter 214. My lord, are we just going to let these soldiers from Cloud Middle Commandery surround us? Wei Chou followed Lin Muyu into the central tent, his face full of anger. We've surrounded Fire Axe Mountain without attacking, but now we've been surrounded as well. The food and water from Kathia City can't be sent in at all. And we've fallen into a quagmire just like the House of Chivalry on Fire Axe Mountain. We must make a decision, my lord. Lin Muyu abruptly turned around, her eyes full of killing intent. Wei Chou, think about it. Why would Bai Lao and the others protect the House of Chivalry like this? Wei Chou was startled, then asked carefully. My lord, are you suspecting that Governor Hu Tianning of Tsangnan Province is in cahoots with the House of Chivalry? Not necessarily, but there's definitely a relationship of interest. Lin Muyu raised her head and sighed. If there wasn't a huge relationship of interest, Hu Tianning wouldn't need to mobilize such a large force, even at the expense of shedding all pretense of cordiality with the Imperial Army. This can only mean that he wants to protect Fire Axe Mountain, and that the House of Chivalry is hiding some secrets that he wants us to know. Wei Chou suddenly understood. My lord, if that's the case, then we must take action. Lin Muyu nodded, asking, how much rations do we have left? 2 days at most. We're running out of water. Dig a dozen wells here. We're low, and there are green mountains all around us except for Fire Axe Mountain. It won't be hard to dig out water. Yes. And what else, my lord? Wei Chou turned to look at him. Find me a set of clothes for the House of Chivalry. I'm going to explore Fire Axe Mountain tonight, and see what secrets this mountain is hiding that made Hu Tianning go to such lengths. My lord, you're risking your life alone, I'm afraid. No need to persuade me, I've made up my mind. Yes, my lord. Late at night, the cold wind howled on Fire Axe Mountain. Rustle, rustle. With a series of rustling sounds, gourd vines began to seep out from the rock stratum, and Lin Muyu grabbed onto a gourd vine tightly, using the characteristics of her martial spirit to climb up the northern cliff of the Fire Axe Mountain. This cliff was not just any ordinary steep cliff. It was a natural barrier that was completely vertical, so the Fire Axe Mountain's rangers would not necessarily guard this place. After all, normal people would not be able to climb up from here. The night was freezing. Lin Muyu's eyebrows were covered with frost, but his eyes were smiling. He was dressed like a rogue hero, and the badge he wore was also green. He was hanging a few hundred meters in the air, climbing up step by step with the help of the gourd vine. Fortunately, the gourd vine was born from his heart, and it was completely compatible with his body. Therefore, he did not have to worry about the thorns on the gourd vine hurting him. Even when Lin Muyu's palm grabbed the gourd vine, the surrounding thorns quickly dissipated into nothingness. It was a very mystical sight. Shwa! With a light leap, Lin Muyu landed on top of a fiery red rock. The dragon spirit sword was wrapped in black cloth and carried on his back. Lin Muyu was very familiar with the House of Chivalry, so he had nothing to fear. He strode over. Not far away, A dozen or so rangers were guarding the outer perimeter of North Mountain. Who is it? One of the rangers hurriedly raised his longbow. Lin Muyu hurriedly raised his hand and said with a smile, "Don't draw your bow, brother. I have a stomachache, but I'm too embarrassed to solve it up there. So I settled it at the edge of the cliff. We're family. Under the moonlight, the ranger saw his attire and couldn't help but laugh. Damn, you scared me. Kid, you look unfamiliar. Are you new? Yes, I've been here for less than a month. No wonder you look unfamiliar. Which team are you from? This question made Lin Muyu stunned. Fortunately, he was more alert and said with a smile, I was brought up the mountain by Lord Iron's Supreme Luoshan. Now I'm following him as his personal guard. There were at least 100 Iron Supreme Luoshan on this mountain. Moreover, there were frequent changes in personnel. These rangers might not know each other, so this lie was very appropriate. Oh, so you're the brother that Lord Iron Supreme brought up the mountain. Come, do you want to drink some wine to warm your body? Thank you, brothers, but I have to go back immediately. Lord Iron Supreme was injured when he went down the mountain to attack today. I have to take care of him. Okay, brother, you've worked hard. After successfully passing through the mountain, Lin Muyu walked along the mountain forest. However, he saw that the rangers along the way were all listless like a withered eggplant. It seemed that the two big blows of the water supply and the failure of the attack had almost caused their morale to drop. It was a pity that Hu Tianning had made a new move. Otherwise, the Longdan army camp would definitely be able to conquer this Fire Axe Mountain within 3 days with minimal losses. At this moment, a group of wandering warriors holding torches suddenly appeared in front of them. They were escorting about 20 people who looked like peasants through the corridor and went straight to the other side of the cliff. One of them raised his whip and scolded in an arrogant manner. Move faster, motherf asterisk cur. If you miss today's work, I'll skin you alive. These civilian workers were all carrying shovels on their shoulders. They looked sallow and emaciated. Lin Muyu couldn't help but frown. Without thinking too much, he quietly followed them and became one of the rangers. Together, they escorted the civilian workers. It was the middle of the night, and they still had to continue working. There must be some kind of secret that they couldn't see. Sure enough, after circling around a small mountain peak, the area in front of them was brightly lit. About 100+ rogue warriors were standing guard in front of a cave, and this cave extended all the way into the depths of Fire Axe Mountain. Faint ding-ding-dang-dang sounds could be heard coming from inside, and Lin Muyu immediately concluded that this was a gold mine. The Fire Axe Mountain was actually a huge gold mine. This was too sensational. Go down. After pushing the civilian workers into the mine, Lin Muyu also followed a group of rangers down. The entire mine was filled with torches and rangers acting as guards. The entire Fire Axe Mountain seemed to have been emptied. The walls of the mine were densely packed with miners. They were using hammers, shovels, and other tools to strike the ores in the mountain. Under the light of the torches, some of the ores had a faint golden hue. Although it wasn't pure, it was definitely a gold mine. Lin Muyu couldn't help but take a deep breath. At this time, a bearded ranger looked at him and asked with a smile, Little brother, you look unfamiliar. Are you new here? That's right. How should I address this big brother? Just call me Daniel. Ha, big brother Daniel, you're also in charge of guarding the mine today. That's right. Daniel nodded. His eyes were filled with greed as he looked at the carts of gold and said, If all of this gold is turned into Jin-in coins, hee. Each of us can marry 7 or 8 wives. Lin Muyu's heart sank. She smiled and said, Big brother Daniel, do you know that these gold mines are used to make coins? Of course. Daniel waved his arm and smiled. Otherwise, why do you think that old fox Hu Tianning sent reinforcements to us when the Fire Axe Mountain was surrounded? Lin Muyu was relieved and said, I'm new here, so I don't really understand these rules. Could it be that Hu Tianning wants these gold mines to make coins for himself? That's right. What else do you think? Daniel excitedly said. Since ancient times, birds die for wealth and birds die for food. But as far as I know, there is a law in the empire that prohibits officials from making coins for themselves. Lin Muyu said hypocritically. Daniel rubbed his nose and said, Do you think that old fox Hu Tianning is a vegetarian? This fire axe mountain has been mined for almost a year. Just the amount of Jin coins that have been made is more than 10 million. Hu Tianning is overflowing with wealth right now. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to buy maids, war horses, and weapons in such a large amount. He even dares to buy war horses and weapons? Lin Muyu smiled in astonishment. This Hu Tianning is really bold. Daniel smiled and said, "Of course. The armies in Songnan province add up to about 120,000 people. Among them, the most elite is the Flying Mount camp led by General Long Qianlin under Hu Tianning. It is said that the war horses of this Flying Mount camp are all fine horses from the western regions. Their weapons are also made by famous craftsmen. All of them are made of black iron. Looking at the entire empire, which army can be mentioned in the same breath as them?" Lin Muyu secretly smiled. Perhaps even her Longdan army camp could contend against them? However, this Hu Tianning was indeed bold. He actually dared to collude with the House of Chivalry to mine gold on Fire Axe Mountain. How bold! Lin Muyu deeply sighed and said, "I wonder how many Jinin coins we can get. Nowadays, marrying a wife in the countryside costs a lot of money." Daniel smiled. "Don't worry. Oh right, what is your name?" "Linji." Daniel immediately patted Lin Muyu's shoulder and smiled. "Little brother Linji, the great travel envoy has already promised us that after we finish mining the gold on Fire Axe Mountain, we will move to another nest. Each brother will receive at least 1,000 Jin coins. Nowadays, the girls in the countryside are quite cheap. You can marry one for only 100 Jin coins. You are so young and strong. Marrying a wife from 5 households is not a problem, ha ha ha." Lin Muyu smiled shyly. "Brother Daniel must be joking. I am still inexperienced, Daniel." At this time, an excited voice suddenly came from the depths of the mine. "We found it! We found it! What did you find?" Lin Muyu was startled. The voice in the depths of the mine immediately responded with a loud laugh. "Sir Jin Zun, we have found a white diamond. Quickly go and tell the great travel envoy that we have finally found a white diamond." Lin Muyu was startled. He immediately went down the rope with a group of wandering warriors. With the help of the light, he saw a group of miners gathered there. At the bottom of the mine, after the hard rocks were cut open, long crystals that looked like ice crystals appeared in front of him. This was the legendary white diamond? What was the difference between a white diamond and a diamond? The people of this world did not worship diamonds, but they seemed to worship white diamonds. What was the use of these glowing white crystals? Chapter 215. What's the use of white diamonds? Lin Muyu asked in surprise. Daniel squinted his eyes and said, "You don't know? White diamonds are very rare, but they're the favorite ornaments of noble ladies. It's said that these white diamonds can emit light, so many noble ladies like to use them to decorate their rooms. Usually, a lady with a white diamond is enough to make her best friend envious." Looking at the bundles of white diamonds in the rock stratum, Lin Muyu furrowed her brows. This was another huge fortune, but it seemed like it was not fated to be with her. It was about to become Hu Tianning's. Taking a deep breath, Lin Muyu tried to touch these white diamonds with her spiritual sense, but she didn't expect that there was spiritual energy in the white diamonds that reflected her spiritual sense. Heavens! These white diamonds actually contained such rich spiritual energy. She carefully analyzed the structure of the white diamonds with her spiritual sense, and found that although they were called diamonds, they were actually more like metals. However, they were a type of metal with unknown characteristics. At least, they weren't in the periodic table of elements. The crystal form of white diamonds was made up of tiny particles, and the structure of each particle was similar to the molecular structure of a diamond. One could imagine how hard it was. It's said that white diamonds have another use. At this time, another venerable who was about 60 years old said while stroking his beard, "Oh, what use?" Lin Muyu and Daniel asked together. The old venerable smiled and said, "I heard from our ancestors that this kind of white diamond is extremely sharp, and it has a natural ability to destroy battle chi. So in ancient times, there were divine blacksmiths who used white diamonds to make weapons. These weapons can easily break through the defense of battle chi armor. In other words, a heavenly king's defense can't even withstand a single blow from a white diamond weapon. Daniel immediately raised his eyebrows and said, Bullsh *T. There are many white diamonds in the Empire now, but why isn't there a weapon made from white diamonds? Because there hasn't been a divine blacksmith of that level in the future. The Venerable smiled disdainfully. You kids won't understand even if I tell you, huh? White diamonds can break battle armor. These words were like a bolt from the blue to Lin Muyu. How many powerful beings at the Heavenly King stage and above had relied on the toughness of their suits of battle armor to dominate an entire army. However, if he could really smelt the white diamond and use it as a weapon, that would be the bane of all Heavenly King stage powerhouses. Furthermore, Lin Muyu could already imagine that scene in her heart. With the white diamond as the arrowhead, wouldn't it be able to instantly kill any Heavenly King stage powerhouse? If that was really the case, perhaps Zhen Yifan, Xiang Yu, and the others wouldn't be as scary as they had imagined. After all, not everyone could withstand the simultaneous release of 10,000 arrows. In an instant, Lin Muyu made up her mind. She couldn't leave any of these white diamonds to Hu Tianning. Otherwise, it would be a disaster. Ouch, he suddenly bent his body. Daniel hurriedly asked, Little brother Linji, what's wrong? I suddenly have a stomachache. I'll go up first. Okay, be careful. Thank you, brother Daniel. This Daniel was very straightforward and honest. He was very likable. After flying out of the mine, Lin Muyu once again arrived at the North Mountain. Using the excuse of having a stomachache, she went down the mountain and headed straight for the main tent of the Longdan army camp. It was already past midnight. Gather all the generals above the rank of Chiliarch, he said in a low voice. Wei Chou immediately cupped his fists. Yes, sir. A few minutes later, more than 10 generals with sleepy eyes came to the main tent. All of their faces were full of surprise. General, for you to summon us in the middle of the night, could it be that the troops from the Cloud Commandery are attacking? Not really. Lin Muyu shook her head. Prepare to gather the troops. We will attack the mountain during the night. We must occupy the entire Fire Axe Mountain before dawn. The Tianchong army will be responsible for bringing up the rear. I will personally lead the Longdan army camp to attack the mountain. We will strive to take it down in one strike. Yes, sir. Luo Yu and Fengxi cupped their fists together. The Longdan army camp awaits your orders at any time. Torches were quickly raised, and every mercenary in the Longdan army camp had a few water bags hanging on their waists. It might not be easy to go down the mountain after going up the mountain. They had to make early preparations to avoid the same fate as the House of Chivalry on the Fire Axe Mountain. In the middle of the night, Lin Muyu led more than 1,000 heavy cavalry of the Longdan army camp to the mountain gate. From afar, Wei Chou killed the Silver Elder guarding the gate with a single arrow. Be careful, the Empire's lackeys are attacking at night. A warning came from the stone fortress. There was no time to waste. Lin Muyu quickly activated his martial spirit. The golden gourd wrapped him and his warhorse within it. He charged towards the mountain gate and raised his right fist. The space seemed to distort because of it. He mustered all his strength and expended nearly 40% of his do chi to unleash a Four Luminaries Demon Cry. The Four Luminaries Demon Cry was an area of effect attack. The power of the demon god bombarded the gate like a cannonball. Instantly, the iron gate was torn into pieces. Even the entire stone city wall was turned into dust. The rangers on the city wall howled in pain. Looking at the countless soldiers of the Longdan army camp climbing up the mountain, none of them dared to resist. They were scared out of their wits and shouted, "Oh my God, are they still human? Sir, spare us. We are willing to join the Empire's army." They quickly broke through the mountain gate. Just as Lin Muyu had expected, there were more than 2,000 rangers on the mountain. However, at least half of them were supervising the work in the mines. Therefore, there were very few people that could be sent out to defend the mountain. The people from the House of Chivalry probably thought that Lin Muyu would not dare to attack the mountain with the arrival of the troops from Yunzhong Commandery. However, they were wrong. It was because the temptation of the white diamond was too great for Lin Muyu to resist. The Longdan army camp swept through and quickly killed their way up the mountain. With just over 1,000 heavy cavalry, they were unimpeded. In fact, it was mainly due to the 60 royal guards at the front of the formation. The strength of the royal guards was known to the world. With these 60 powerhouses attacking the mountain, it was a miracle that the House of Chivalry could withstand them. Be careful, their great Wuxia's envoy is here. Xiahou Sang raised his spear and rushed over from afar. He laughed and said, "Leave this great Wuxia's envoy to me." The great Wuxia's envoy was already a white-haired old man. The result was beyond Xiahou Sang's expectations. With a sweep of his battle energy, Xiahou Sang and his horse were pushed back. He was not a match for the great Wuxia's envoy at all. Lin Muyu narrowed her eyes. This great Wuxia's envoy was wearing battle armor. He was a heavenly king powerhouse, but his aura might not be stronger than hers. More importantly, the great Wuxia's envoy's weapon was only a spirit-grade long saber. With me Guanlongxing here, who dares to be presumptuous? The great Wuxia's envoy held his saber in front of him, his face full of arrogance. The group of rangers behind him were encouraged, and all of them had smiles on their faces. Lord Great Wuxia's envoy is indeed invincible. Brothers, we will definitely win. Pa! Lin Muyu suddenly leaped from her horse, her battle energy rising rapidly. Holding the dragon spirit sword with both hands, she quickly descended from the sky. The blade was surrounded by the two luminaries' demonic dance's Xian energy. She shouted, "I don't care if you are a great Wuxia's envoy or not. Eat my sword." Lin Muyu. The great Wuxia's envoy's eyes turned cold. He hurriedly raised his long saber to block Lin Muyu's mighty sword. Clang! Sparks flew, and a small piece of steel broke off from the handle of the long saber. It was obvious that the hardness of the saber was far inferior to the dragon spirit sword, but this great Wuxia's man was not to be trifled with. The long saber suddenly slashed down. Wong! The golden wall of the gourd opened, and Lin Muyu forcefully blocked the opponent's saber. His blood energy was in turmoil. Damn, those who could step into the Heavenly King stage were not easy to deal with. They had to rely on their own strengths. Using the rebound force, he retreated, but his battle boots quickly stepped on the ground, and he launched another attack. This time, he focused the Xian energy of the three luminaries' calamity on the longsword, and activated the true dragon essence fire to surround the blade to increase its destructive power. Guanlongxing hurriedly turned around and left, his long saber dragging along the ground, leaving a trail of sparks. Stalling? Lin Muyu was stunned. Was this Guanlongxing the incarnation of Marshal Saint Guan? However, while he was in the air, he threw his longsword out without thinking. The stalling tactic was to pretend to retreat and let the opponent chase him, then turn around and kill him with a slash. However, this tactic was useless against the sword control technique. Wang. The dragon spirit sword cut through the air, flames surrounding the sword hilt all the way to Lin Muyu's palm. Guanlongxing heard a sharp whistle behind him, and hurriedly turned around and raised his saber to block again. Clang! This time, the sound was even more crisp, and the long saber was directly cut in half. Guanlongxing was stunned, but his face was full of anger. He held the saber hilt in one hand and the broken saber head in the other, and rushed toward Lin Muyu. Before Lin Muyu could land on the ground, he swept his saber horizontally. The long saber slammed into the wall of the gourd, and she rolled away in a sorry state. Guanlongxing didn't let her go, and he beat her up with both hands. Lin Muyu had never suffered like this before, and it was in front of so many mercenaries in the Longdan army camp. Her battle boots suddenly pierced into the ground, and after stabilizing her body, the dragon spirit sword appeared in her hand again, and she slashed out like lightning. Pung! The sword struck Guanlongxing's shoulder like lightning, but he still had his battle armor on. He grabbed the blade of the dragon spirit sword, and his face was full of arrogance. He stabbed the long saber horizontally into Lin Muyu's chest. Lin Muyu's reaction was even faster. She turned around and used her battle armor to deflect the fatal strike. Her left hand quickly spun, and flames surged as she controlled the dragon spirit sword to spin rapidly. Ah! Guanlongxing's sword hand was quickly crushed into pieces. Even a saber couldn't block the dragon spirit sword, let alone a body of flesh and blood. Lin Muyu was extremely fast. She directly grabbed the chainmail on Guan Longxing's neck with one hand, and her right hand grabbed the hilt of the sword and pressed it against his chest. Pooh! Fresh blood spurted out. Guan Longxing, a master of his generation, a legendary figure of the Guild of Chivalry's headquarters in Songnan Province, ended his tragic life just like that. Chapter 216. With Guan Longxing's death, the few remaining golden venerables and silver venerables from the House of Chivalry lost their courage to continue fighting. One by one they knelt on the ground and wailed. "The great wanderer, you died a terrible death. What are you crying for?" Xiahou Sang crawled up from the mud and said with his spear in hand, "Put down your weapons and I will spare your lives. Otherwise I will kill all of you." "We are willing to surrender." The group of people put down their weapons. It was good that there was no massacre. "My lord, what should we do now?" Qi Ying cupped his fists and said, "I feel that since Fire Axe Mountain has been conquered and these rangers are willing to surrender, our mission is complete. Why don't we go down the mountain immediately?" Lin Muyu nodded. "General Qi Ying will lead 5,000 heavy cavalry from the Tianchong army down the mountain to set up camp. Wait for me." "Yes." Qi Ying mounted his horse and left. Wei Chou asked, "My lord, what else do we need to do?" "Bring the men and follow me." "Yes." In the Fire Axe Mountain mine, the clanking sounds were still lingering. When more than 1,000 Longdan army camp mercenaries appeared in the mine, the rangers did not have the courage to fight at all. They all put down their weapons and expressed their willingness to surrender. Most of these people only joined the House of Chivalry to seek a better future. Apart from some of them who had bad records, the rest could be incorporated into the Longdan army camp mercenaries. Lin Muyu was wearing the Holy Temple's battle robe. When she stepped into the mine with Wei Chou, Xiahou Sang, and the other royal guards, Daniel recognized her from afar. His eyes widened. Aren't you little brother Lin Ji?" Wei Chou said in a low voice. "Don't be rude. This is Lin Muyu from the Eagle's Nest camp of the royal guards. She is also the new general of the south." "This." Daniel's face was filled with fear as he quickly knelt down and said, "This lowly one greets sir." This lowly one didn't know sir was. I know I was wrong, sir. Please don't kill me." Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh. She went forward to hold Daniel's arms and said with a smile, "Brother Daniel, my real name is indeed Lin Ji. You don't have to be afraid. The Imperial Army isn't like the dogs of the Empire that you guys claim to be. Don't worry, if you're willing to surrender, then join us. If not, then take your Jinin coins and go home. With me here, no one will dare to touch a single hair on your head." Daniel stood there in shock while Wei Chou snickered. "This big blockhead is really stupid." Xiahou Sang looked around and said, "Heavens, so there's a gold mine here. These damn rangers are secretly mining here instead of reporting to the Ministry of Works. Humans die in pursuit of wealth just as birds die in pursuit of food. It's normal," Lin Muyu said. Luo Yu, on the other hand, was quite courageous. She squinted her eyes and said with a smile, "I'm afraid the truth is more than that. From Hu Tianing's behavior, this gold mine is most likely his. At least, he won't be able to clean up this mess no matter what." However, Lin Muyu suddenly turned around and said with a serious expression, "Listen up, all of you. This gold mine was mined by Guan Longxing of the House of Chivalry in Songnan Province. It has nothing to do with Sir Hu Tianing of Five Valley City. If anyone dares to slander Governor Hu Tianing, I, Lin Muyu, promise to cut off his head with my sword." Luo Yu, Wei Chou, and the others were shocked. "Sir, this," however, Feng Shi smiled and cupped his fists. "Sir is wise." At this time, everyone had already reached the bottom of the mine. However, in less than 2 hours, clusters of white diamond crystals had already appeared in their field of vision. "These are white diamonds?" Wei Chou, who was experienced and knowledgeable, asked. Lin Muyu nodded and said, "Luo Yu, Feng Shi, let our brothers in the Longdan army camp come down and quickly mine these white diamonds. Then load them up and send them back to Dragon Rocky Mountain." Luo Yu smiled. "Yes, sir." Lin Muyu walked forward and used the dragon spirit sword to dig with all her might. She found that there were actually only so many white diamonds in front of her. If she dug any further, there would be gold mines. Wei Chou saw through Lin Muyu's thoughts and said with a smile, "Sir, white diamonds only grow in rich spiritual energy layers, so there are only so many here. Moreover, it's already very fortunate that we can dig so many. The reserves of white diamonds here are equivalent to about half of the empire's total reserves, right?" Lin Muyu nodded. "Yes, this is enough. Hurry up and mine." Xiahou Sang was puzzled. "Sir, then what about the gold mines? Privately mining gold mines is a capital offense." Lin Muyu smiled at him and said, "Xiahou Sang, do you want to violate the empire's laws?" "This." Xiahou Sang smiled. "Sir is too smart." Lin Muyu didn't go anywhere. She just sat in the mine and watched Luo Yu, Wei Chou, and the others mine the white diamonds. She put the white diamonds that were submitted into her Qiankuan bag one by one. However, the Qiankuan bag was quickly filled to the brim. There were at most 700 to 800 white diamonds. The remaining hundreds of white diamonds were given to the soldiers in the Longdan army camp to carry. At this moment, a tiger-level commander from the Longdan army camp dashed into the mine and cupped his fists. "Commander, a group of people who claim to be from the Flying Mount camp have arrived at the foot of the mountain. They said that if we don't go out, they will immediately attack the mountain." General Qi Ying of the Tianchong army camp seems to be unable to restrain his anger and wants to fight. "Sir, quickly go and take a look." "Oh?" Lin Muyu's gaze turned cold. "Is Long Qianlin finally here?" Long Qianlin is known as the #1 general in the Cangnan province. "We are outnumbered and can't fight him, sir," Luo Yu advised. "I know." Lin Muyu frowned and said, "Don't stop mining here. The few of you follow me out." "Yes." After exiting the mine, she mounted her horse and led the 3,000-plus cavalrymen from the Longdan army camp down the mountain. At this time, it was already daybreak. The first rays of the morning sun shone on the Fire Axe Mountain, reflecting a patch of red. However, the foot of the mountain also seemed to be covered in a patch of red. No, it should be called blood red. A battle had already broken out at the mountain gate. Corpses were lying there, and blood had dyed the ground red. Qi Ying's armor was stained with blood. He held his spear and urged his horse forward in a somewhat sorry state. He said, "Sir, I fell into Long Qianlin's trap. I was forced to retreat by their spear formation on the mountainside." "You?" Lin Muyu suppressed her anger and calmly said, "Victory and defeat are common. Follow me to take a look." "Yes, sir." There were close to 500 corpses lying on the hillside. At least 400 of them belonged to the Tianchong army. The number of corpses from the Flying Mount camp was pitifully small. The fortress had just been repaired and both sides were in a standoff. Lin Muyu saw this and raised her eyebrows. She said, "Wei Chou, bring our master archers to the fortress. When the Flying Mount camp comes over later, aim at their eyes and necks and shoot." "Yes, sir, watch carefully." Lin Muyu continued. "Luo Yu, lead the stronger brothers from the Longdan army camp to the fortress and carry the rounder stones. If the Flying Mount camp attacks the mountain forcefully, throw these stones down." "Yes, sir." Fengxi, lead 200 men to dismount and form a shield formation to block their arrows. "Yes." After the assignment was completed, Lin Muyu carried the dragon spirit sword and ascended the small mountain gate. Looking from afar, the Fire Axe Mountain was really surrounded. There were at least 30,000 men and horses at the foot of the mountain, including the elite Flying Mount camp. Moreover, Long Qianlin, the #1 general of Cangnan province, was personally overseeing this conflict. No matter how one looked at it, it didn't look like they could win. Looking into the distance, Lin Muyu channeled her qi into her voice and said in a clear voice, "Sir Long Qianlin, I didn't expect that we would meet in this way after we parted at Wugu City." From the cavalry formation, a man dressed in black armor walked out with a spear in his hand and said with a smile, "Sir Lin Muyu, I, Long Qianlin, also didn't expect that we would meet like this. However, sir, you led your troops into the territory of Cangnan province without permission and ordered your subordinates to kill over 100 soldiers from Yunzhong Commandery. Your actions are equivalent to treason, so I had no choice but to surround this Fire Axe Mountain. Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh and said, General Long Qianlin didn't even frown when he lied. You really have the demeanor of a famous general. Why did I come up the mountain, and why did you come here? Don't tell me that General Long Qianlin doesn't know? Long Qianlin sneered. Sir Lin Muyu, you are one of the 4 heroes of Lan and Yin appointed by His Majesty. Everyone knows that you are now the honorable general of the South. Everyone thinks that you will be a famous general in the future. I, Long Qianlin, have the honor to experience the abilities of a famous general like you today. Do you dare to fight? Come. Lin Muyu said lightly. Clang. Long Qianlin unsheathed his sword and shouted, Attack the mountain! The Flying Mount Battalion mobilized 1,000 men to attack the mountain. Their formation was neat and orderly. After entering the firing range, they immediately raised their shields to protect themselves and their companions. They moved forward as a whole without the slightest bit of disorder, as if they were an iron shield. Lin Muyu couldn't help but secretly exclaim in admiration. This Long Qianlin was indeed very capable. As a famous general in the era of cold weapons, everyone had their own skill. Long Qianlin's reputation was definitely earned through fighting, and not through bragging. Release the arrows. Under Wei Chao's command, the stone fortress released tens of thousands of arrows in unison. Moreover, there was no lack of sharpshooters among the Imperial Guards and the Longdan army camp. While the arrows landed on the shields, there was no lack of arrows that hit the eyes and necks of the soldiers of the Flying Mount Battalion. Immediately, blood-curdling screams rang out. In the blink of an eye, dozens of people were shot and killed. The entire shield formation seemed to have been affected. Long Qianlin spurred his horse to the rear of the cavalry formation. He suddenly raised his long sword and shouted, Throw the spear! Clang, 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 one by one, the shields fell. The next moment, the nearly 1,000 soldiers of the Flying Mount Battalion raised the spears on their horses and threw them. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Squat down! Lin Muyu hurriedly shouted. Everyone on the fortress squatted down one after another. However, there were still people who couldn't dodge in time, and were directly shot by the spears. In the blink of an eye, 7 or 8 people were killed and more than 10 people were injured. Chapter 217. Clang, clang. The opponent raised his shield again to protect his whole body. Lin Muyu squinted her eyes. Seeing that the opponent was already less than 10 meters away from her, she immediately raised her arm and shouted, Hurl the stones. Luo Yu led a group of strong men to hurl the stones. Instantly, the sky seemed to be covered by the stones. The moment the huge stones smashed the shields of the Flying Mount camp soldiers, they were badly mutilated. Not only that, Lin Muyu flew down the city wall. Not only that, Lin Muyu dashed down the city wall with the golden gourd walls protecting her body. Her longsword left her hand and circled around rapidly. Suddenly, a dragon flame spiral pierced through the crowd of the Flying Mount Battalion. The dragon spirit sword was so sharp that it pierced through the shields and armors, instantly drawing a stream of blood. Lin Muyu brandished her fists and sent 2 cavalrymen flying along with their shields with 2 punches. She then grabbed the dragon spirit sword that was spinning towards her and swept it horizontally, breaking an entire row of shields with a cracking sound. She even mercilessly chopped off the cavalrymen's arms. Assassinate! Long Qianlin shouted. One by one, the cavalrymen moved their shields away and pierced the walls of Lin Muyu's gourd with their spears. Instantly, the light was dense and ripples were formed. Each ripple meant that a portion of Lin Muyu's battle energy was consumed. This won't do. We can't fight a protracted battle like this. Lin Muyu quickly retreated, and the gourd vines quickly wrapped around the stone wall. She quickly climbed up and shouted in a low voice, Hurl the spears! Hundreds of mercenaries from the Longdan army camp on the fortress also raised their spears and hurled them down. The stones had already disrupted the opponent's formation, and this round of throwing spears killed nearly 100 of them. In the blink of an eye, less than 700 of the 1,000 soldiers from the Flying Mount camp were left, and many of them were injured by the flying arrows. Long Qianlin was distressed. How could he continue fighting? He shouted in a low voice, Everyone come back! Prepare the fire oil trucks. Fire oil trucks? Lin Muyu felt a chill in her heart. She sighed inwardly. This Long Qianlin was truly vicious. It was winter, and the vegetation had withered. If he used fire to attack, then wouldn't this fire axe mountain really turn into a volcano? No, I can't let the 10,000 soldiers of the Tianchong army and the Longdan army camp die with me. Pressing her hand on the ice-cold stone wall, Lin Muyu shouted from a distance, Long Qianlin, I've received the imperial order to annihilate the chivalrous inn. Do you really want to exterminate us, the imperial army? A day ago I had already sent a letter to Lanyan City to ask for help, and Commander Feng Jixing will soon lead 50,000 troops to reinforce. Do you want to be enemies with Feng Jixing or the Empire? Long Qianlin's face was gloomy as he said, Lin Muyu, it is a fact that you have killed the soldiers of Yunzhong Commandery. Just this point is enough to make you unable to be the general of the South. When General Feng Jixing arrives, this general will naturally explain the whole story to him. He still had some fear. After all, some things couldn't be said out loud. He also didn't want Lin Muyu and the others to divulge certain information. Lin Muyu was as clear as a blazing fire. She smiled and said, General Long, when I went up the mountain, I discovered that the dog thief Guan Longxing was secretly mining the gold mine in the mountain. I've already killed him. I believe that Governor Hu Tianning of the Five Valleys City still doesn't know about this matter. I advise you to immediately withdraw your troops. In this case, I will give the credit of discovering this gold mine to Governor Hu Tianning. What do you think? Long Qianlin was instantly stunned. What he feared the most was that Lin Muyu's conviction that Hu Tianning had colluded with the chivalrous into secretly mint coins would be exposed. However, Lin Muyu's words were completely exonerating Hu Tianning. What an extremely intelligent Lin Muyu. Long Qianlin secretly praised in his heart. He raised his head and asked, Madam Lin Muyu, did you really not intentionally shoot the soldiers of Yunzhong Commandery? If this is really the case, then this battle was a misunderstanding. Lin Muyu spread out her hands and looked like an old friend reminiscing about the old days. She smiled and said, General Long, do you still not trust me? I, Lin Muyu, am the Emperor's adopted son, and the commander of the Imperial Guard's Eagle Guard. Moreover, this group of dog thieves from the chivalrous inn had secretly mined the gold mine. Many soldiers and I witnessed it with our own eyes. As long as I return to the imperial capital, this credit will definitely belong to Governor Hu Tianning. Consider it as me returning a favor to you and thanking you for not killing them. Long Qianlin nodded. All right, I will go back and discuss this with the governor. Madam Lin Muyu, please wait here for a moment. All right. In the main tent of the Flying Mount camp, Hu Tianning was still enjoying a cup of fragrant tea. Suddenly, Long Qianlin opened the tent door and entered. He said, Madam, I'm back. Oh, it's Qianlin. What's the result? Long Qianlin looked a little ashamed. He said, Lin Muyu used his troops wisely. This general was unable to conquer Fire Axe Mountain in a short period of time. However, Lin Muyu said that he found out that Guan Longxing had secretly mined the gold mine. From his words, he didn't seem to have the slightest suspicion that Madam was involved in this matter. Is that so? Hu Tianning squinted his eyes and said, This Lin Muyu is simply extremely intelligent. It is not a good thing to have such a person stay by His Majesty's side. Qianlin, what do you think we should do now? Long Qianlin cupped his fists and said, Darren, Lin Muyu said that he had already sent a letter to Lanyan City to ask for reinforcements. Feng Jixing will be leading 50,000 troops, and will arrive in a few days. Even though I do not know if it is true or false, but Qianlin thinks that killing Lin Muyu on Fire Axe Mountain would remove a big worry in his heart, but at the same time offend Feng Jixing and the imperial capital. It is inevitable that the matter of the coinage will be leaked. In my opinion, it is better to let go of Lin Muyu this time. There will be plenty of opportunities to kill him. Qianlin guarantees to Darren that the next time, I will not let Lin Muyu have any hope of survival. Hu Tianning laughed heartily. Qianlin, are you appreciating Lin Muyu? Long Qianlin was startled. Darren, I did not. It doesn't matter. Let's go. Follow me to welcome the Emperor's godson down the mountain. Yes. At the foot of Fire Axe Mountain, the flag was flying. Hu Tianning was escorted by a group of Flying Mount camp soldiers to the foot of the mountain. The corpses that were left behind from the previous battle had all been removed, as if this conflict had never happened. Creak. The wooden door that had just been built opened. Lin Muyu brought Wei Chou, Luo Yu, Qi Ying and the rest down the mountain. Lin Muyu was still all right as she had a smile on her face, but the three generals behind her had a vigilant look on their faces. Their right hands were placed on the hilt of their swords at their waist, as if they were ready to fight at any time. The fortress behind them was densely packed with soldiers from the Longdan army camp, who were ready to fight at any time. Darren, we will stop here. Long Qianlin reached out to restrain Hu Tianing's warhorse, indicating that he should not go any further. If he went any further, he would enter the shooting range of the Longdan army camp's archers. Long Qianlin had personally experienced the accuracy and arm strength of the dozens of godly archers in the Longdan army camp. Hu Tianing was also afraid of death. He nodded with a smile, turned over and dismounted to wait. Lin Muyu and the others sped up their pace and came very close. Lin Muyu cupped her fists and smiled. It's been a long time, Governor. We meet again after we parted ways in Five Valley City. Hu Tianing cupped his hands and smiled. Yes, but I did not expect that there would be some small misunderstanding between us. The information we received before was not true. Please do not be angry, General Lin. I, Hu Tianing, did not act appropriately in this matter. It was our Tsangnan province that neglected General. Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh and said, What are you talking about? I should thank you for personally leading tens of thousands of troops from Five Valley City to the foot of Fire Axe Mountain to protect our army. Ha! The muscles on Hu Tianing's face twitched. He seemed to hear the sarcasm in Lin Muyu's words, but he did not show any strange expression. He just smiled and said, General, the House of Chivalry of Fire Axe Mountain is treacherous. Each and every one of them should be executed immediately. I wonder how the general will deal with those prisoners of war? Lin Muyu said, I will escort them back to Lanyan City to await punishment. They will most likely be executed, so there is no need for you to worry. This is what I should do. Yes. Lin Muyu walked forward and lowered her voice. Governor, this Fire Axe Mountain is actually a gold mine. The bastards of the House of Chivalry have already mined a lot of it. It is really hateful. I only received orders to destroy the House of Chivalry, but I did not receive any orders regarding the gold mine. So I have already sent a letter back to Lanyan City, to let the Ministry of Works send people over to mine coins. Before that, this Fire Axe Mountain will be handed over to the governor to send people to guard. Hu Tianing nodded. Yes, I understand. Please rest assured, General. Well, then let the Flying Mount Battalion disperse. Let my people go down the mountain. Yes. Long Qianlin waved his flag. Immediately, the Flying Mount Battalion and the garrison troops of Five Valley City dispersed, creating a path for Lin Muyu's troops to escape. Galloping on their horses, more than 9,000 cavalrymen quickly withdrew from the Fire Axe Mountain, followed by nearly 2,000 surrendered soldiers from the House of Chivalry. At the same time, they also took away more than 1,400 precious white diamonds. Of course, Hu Tianing would not be aware of the existence of these white diamonds for the time being. After getting out of the encirclement, Lin Muyu finally heaved a sigh of relief. It was not easy to bring these 10,000 people out alive. Perhaps only he knew how dangerous it was. Sir. Wei Qiu's face was full of doubt, and said, We once again left the Fire Axe Mountain's gold mine to Hu Tianing. From what I see, this guy will definitely continue to mine coins. Don't tell me. We don't know anything. Otherwise? Lin Muyu asked and smiled. It's not easy to come out alive. Don't provoke Hu Tianing anymore. Wei Qiu, you know the feudal lords of the empire better than I do. Are all the governors of the provinces like Hu Tianing? Wei Qiu was stunned and said, At least more than half. The governors of the provinces have a certain amount of power to recruit soldiers. So, the governors of the major provinces will basically gather troops for themselves. This is also a major reason why the imperial power of the emperor has been weakened. Moreover, regarding the matter of exterminating the House of Chivalry, after the imperial edict was issued, all the provinces agreed on the surface but disobeyed in secret. This is all expected. I see. Lin Muyu took a deep breath and her mood became solemn. This Qin Empire seemed to be a centralized imperial system, but in fact, it was almost a situation where warlords were divided. Living in such a chaotic world, she really did not know whether it was a blessing or a curse. Holding the dragon spirit sword, Lin Muyu lowered her eyes and looked at the ground that was constantly retreating under the hooves of the horses. For a moment, her heart was filled with mixed feelings. Chapter 218. After leaving Fire Axe Mountain, they continued to station their troops outside Silver Fir City. This time, however, Lin Muyu ordered Fengxi to lead 500 mercenaries from the Longdan army camp into Silver Fir City. They would be able to coordinate with those outside the city at any time. And with their backs to Silver Fir City, they could enter the city at any time. Although Silver Fir City's walls weren't particularly thick, they at least had enough food and water. At dusk, the afterglow of the setting sun shone upon the camp. The Spirit Medicine Division was already cooking meat soup and frying the army flatbread a little, so that the soldiers could enjoy it more. Inside the central tent, Luoyu, Qiying, Wei Qiu and the others were standing around a sand table. Although this sand table made of silt was simple and crude, it at least had a rough representation of the entire Songnan province. Wei Qiu was a meticulous man. He inserted a small blue flag into the sand table and said, "Within the Songnan province, the main altar of the House of Chivalry had more than 5,000 soldiers. We've already eliminated them, but there are still a total of 47 branches left. Going by the distance, the branch in Cloud Province is the closest with around 550 people. The second is the branch on the east of Silver Fir City with around 400 people. There's nothing to fear." Xiahou said, "My lord, if we were to eliminate them one by one, it would take too much time. This general suggests that we split our forces. We'll split into 10 groups of 1,000 men and eliminate them together. What does my lord think?" Lin Muyu nodded and said, "Then let's pick 10 capable Kiliarchs to lead the troops. Remember, we'll try to get them to surrender first. If they don't succeed, then we'll attack. Try to minimize our losses from the House of Gallantry." "Yes, this general understands." Lin Muyu then looked at Wei Qiu and said, "How is the establishment of the Divine Bao Battalion going?" Wei Qiu smiled slightly. Reporting to Master, this general has already selected 100 mercenaries with extraordinary archery skills from the Brave Dragon camp. In the future, these people will be able to train in the consummate skill of shooting a poplar from 100 steps away. And that's good. Lin Muyu let out a sigh of relief and said, "All right, everyone is tired after a busy day. Let's go back and rest early. We'll set out to eliminate the bandits tomorrow morning. In addition, place our scouts further away and pay close attention to the movements of the 5 Valley Cities troops." "Yes." After everyone dispersed, Lin Muyu sat on the edge of the bed and circulated the Forging Dragon Bone Remnant Scroll to recover her Douqi and physical strength. Soon after, she got off the bed and took out a crystal from her Cosmos bag. It was really a white diamond. This crystal pillar was about 1 meter long and 10 centimeters thick. It was exquisitely carved and sparkled under the light. Glancing at the door, he ordered, "No one can come in without my permission." "Yes, my lord," the guard replied solemnly. Lin Muyu raised her hand and summoned her cauldron. It was time to verify whether the legend was true or not. Was it true that a weapon forged from white diamond could break through battle armor? If it was true, then this trip to Fire Axe Mountain was a huge profit. If it wasn't, then it would only be an empty joy. Swoosh swoosh. Strands of heavenly fire lingered around the crystal and began to refine this hard iron stone. Her spiritual sense slowly seeped into the crystal and dissected the spirit stone layer. Immediately, the fire drilled into the spirit stone layer and quickly melted the iron. Not long after, small white diamond particles like the tip of a needle floated in the molten iron. These were real white diamonds. Lin Muyu frowned and continued to use the heavenly fire to refine the crystal. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't melt these particles. These particles were abnormally hard and solidified. The only thing Lin Muyu could do was to reshape the solidified form of these particles. Suddenly, her heart sank. Perhaps these particles could be reshaped and condensed on the blade. In that case, the sharpness of the blade would be greatly enhanced. Immediately, she took out the dragon spirit sword and placed it into the cauldron. Immediately, the dragon serpent sword spirit let out a series of roars. Lin Muyu spread her fingers and controlled the white diamonds to attach to the sword, quickly turning it into a sharp edge. This way, the sharpness of the dragon spirit sword would not be affected, but it would also greatly increase the strength of the sword. Only a fist-sized white diamond had been extracted from the entire white diamond crystal pillar. Half of it had been smelted into the blade of the dragon spirit sword. The remaining half could be used in other areas. Buzz! Lin Muyu held the dragon spirit sword in his hand again. The blade seemed to be plated with a layer of silver light, and was glowing brightly. Lin Muyu was secretly delighted. He could feel the joy of the sword's soul in his palm. The dragon spirit sword had been strengthened after the blade was reforged. He slowly returned the dragon spirit sword to its sheath. He looked around with a satisfied expression, and picked up a bunch of arrows from the side. The arrowheads of these arrows were made of hard steel, and were very sharp. But no matter how sharp they were, they couldn't pierce through the defenses of heavy shields and armors. Therefore, these arrows could only cause fatal damage to some light armored troops. Once they encountered heavy cavalry like the Flying Mount Battalion, they would probably be useless. But this situation was going to change today. Swoosh! She tossed the first arrow into the cauldron, and the wooden branch that was the arrow was immediately burned to ashes. The steel arrowhead also quickly turned red. Before the arrowhead could melt, Lin Muyu immediately activated his battle chi, and controlled a small amount of white diamond particles to attach to the arrowhead. His spiritual perception seeped into the arrowhead, and quickly sharpened the blade. Not long after that, a silver-plated arrowhead appeared in front of him. Can this thing really pierce through battle armor? Lin Muyu held the scorching arrowhead with a doubtful look on his face. With that in mind, he didn't think too much about it. He suddenly crossed his left arm in front of his chest, and quickly condensed his battle chi armor. He then stabbed the arrowhead down with all his might. A sharp pain immediately came from his left arm. Sure enough, the white diamond arrowhead broke through the defense of his battle armor, and left a wound on his arm. Heavens! Lin Muyu was completely shocked. After stepping into the second heavenly layer, she thought that ordinary weapons could no longer harm her. Now that she thought about it, this thought was laughably childish. Everything in the world had a natural counter to each other, and this white diamond was like the nemesis of battle armor. It was like fire was afraid of water. After being hit by the white diamond arrowhead, it automatically dissipated. She used her battle chi to stop the bleeding and put the arrowhead aside. Then, she pulled out all the arrowheads from the cluster of arrows and smelted them into white diamonds one by one. However, there were nearly 100 arrows in this cluster, and half of the crystal pillar was only enough to smelt 50 arrows. She had no choice but to smelt the second white diamond crystal. As a result, after tempering all 100 arrows into white diamond arrowheads, she also tempered the pear blossom spear and demonic noise saber with white diamonds. This also meant that if she encountered a powerhouse above the second heavenly layer, the weapons tempered with white diamonds would achieve a miraculous effect. In fact, there was only one reason why Lin Muyu was so eager to smelt so many white diamond arrowheads, and that was to deal with a sanctuary powerhouse. After Zheng Yifan killed Rong Hanyuan in Zetian Palace, who wouldn't be afraid of the power of the sanctuary? Even Qin Lei, Feng Jixing, and the others couldn't fight back against Zheng Yifan, let alone other people. Moreover, no one knew how many powerhouses were hiding on this continent. Zheng Yifan, Chu Chu, and Lei Hong weren't the only ones in the sanctuary. This was already an indisputable fact. The main reason why Lin Muyu ordered Wei Chou to build a godly archer battalion for the Longdan army camp was to use this army to deal with the sanctuary. That's right, under the explosive shooting of a group of godly archers' white diamond arrowheads, any sanctuary powerhouse would probably fall into a desperate situation, right? After placing this bundle of white diamond arrowheads beside the bed, Lin Muyu finally calmed down and fell into a deep sleep. She hadn't had a good sleep for many days. Now that she was in the center of an army of 10,000, there was no need to talk about her safety, so she could have a good sleep. The night passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, it was already early morning. The sound of horse hooves outside woke Lin Muyu up. After she got up and washed up, Wei Chou had already come over with the demon-devouring bow. He smiled and said, "My lord, did you sleep well?" "Very well." Lin Muyu smiled slightly and said, "Wei Chou, carry the bundle of arrowheads in my room. We'll go to the shooting range now and try it out." Oh. Wei Chou didn't question much, and went in to carry the arrows out. Looking at the luster of the arrows, his heart sank and he said, "My lord, these arrows have an inexplicable feeling of sharpness. Let's go." When they arrived at the shooting range, they saw a group of soldiers from the Divine Archer unit practicing mounted archery. The target was covered with arrows, and the hooves of horses galloped back and forth. However, there were a few Tianchong army heavy cavalry chatting and laughing to the side. Among them, Qing raised her spear and said with a smile, "No matter how good one's archery is, it is impossible to pierce through the armor of heavy cavalry. It's all in vain." Wei Chou was somewhat displeased. "That may not be true. As long as it is accurate, it is possible to kill with one arrow." Qing laughed heartily. "It's just that not every archer can train their archery to Milord Wei Chou's level. General Lin, don't you think so?" "That may not be true." Lin Muyu smiled mysteriously and said, "Qing, place your Tianchong army shield under the target. Wei Chou, shoot an arrow and see if it can pierce through the shield." "Okay." Qing spurred her horse forward, unconvinced. She placed a black heavy shield under the target and said with a smile, "The Tianchong army's black stone shield weighs at least 100 pounds, and is 3 centimeters thick. Let's see how you can pierce through it." Wei Chou did not say anything. He raised his hand and grabbed a white diamond arrow, knocked it on the demon-devouring bow, and slowly pulled it back. With a whoosh, the arrow left the bowstring. In the next moment, with a clang, it completely pierced through the shield. Qi Ying's mouth was wide open in shock. How is this possible?" It must be because of Milord Wei Chou's arm strength that you can do this. If it was someone else, it may not be the same." Wei Chou knew the secret behind this and smiled slightly. "Then let's change to someone else. Sun Hu, you shoot an arrow." As he spoke, he handed over a white diamond arrow. The mercenary from the Longdan army camp raised his hand and shot an arrow. Just like before, the arrow pierced through the heavy shield with a clang. Qing was completely dumbfounded. There must be something fishy going on. The shields of our Tianchong army are not shoddily made low-quality equipment. How is this possible? Wei Chou patted his shoulder and smiled. "All right, let's get ready for the morning's mission." Chapter 219. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Batches of soldiers from the Tianchong army and Longdan army camp returned with good news. The 47 branches of the House of Chivalry in Sungnan province had all been destroyed. More than half of them had surrendered. Longdan army camp had been able to pick out nearly 3,000 men of good character and strength to join the Longdan army camp. Lin Muyu's task in these 10 days was very simple. She continued to refine the white diamond crystals and forged 20,000 white diamond arrows for the Longdan army camp. This should be enough for a while. Moreover, Luoyu was a good general. Every time she shot out a white diamond arrow, she would retrieve it. Even if the arrow was broken, she would pull out the arrowhead and install a new arrow. At noon, Wei Chou returned with a batch of captives and supplies from the House of Chivalry. His face was beaming with joy as he went straight to the main tent. "My lord, we have seized nearly 50,000 Jinin coins. These people in the House of Chivalry's branches are really rich." Lin Muyu was installing arrowheads on arrows. She twisted them and smiled. The House of Chivalry is like the wandering mercenaries. They make a living by robbing the people. Naturally, they are very rich. Wei Chou cupped his fists and smiled, saying, "Sir, from now on, the House of Chivalry's military forces in the Sungnan province have been almost completely wiped out by us. There will no longer be anyone oppressing the people and causing the fires of war here." "Do you think that will be the case?" Lin Muyu smiled, stood up and said, "The House of Chivalry is admittedly very strong, But the 9 cities of Tsangnan province each have a military force of no less than 2,000 people. The local government should be responsible for eliminating the bandits, but we have to do it. Even if we leave, new bandits will breed here, so it's completely useless. Then isn't it meaningless for us to eliminate the bandits this time? Not necessarily. Lin Muyu did not continue and said. In the afternoon, Zhang Wei will be leading the 3,000 Imperial Guards. They will be here to supervise and protect the Fire Axe Mountains gold mining. Send someone to ensure the safety of the Imperial Guards before we leave. Yes. Wei Chou saluted and suddenly smiled. I heard that. Princess Xi has come to Kathaya City with Lord Zhang Wei. Oh, sir, aren't you going to welcome them? Then let's go. Lin Muyu's heart warmed. It seemed that she hadn't seen Tang Xiaoxi for a long time. It was afternoon, and the sun was shining brightly. The sound of hooves could be heard from the distant road as the 3,000-strong Imperial Guards led by Zhang Wei arrived at Silver Fir City. At the very front of the formation was Tang Xiaoxi. She was dressed in a fiery red robe, and her cloak was embroidered with gold. It was a beautiful sight to behold. When she saw Lin Muyu and the others from afar, she immediately spurred her horse forward. Whoosh! Tang Xiaoxi suddenly leapt from her warhorse, the fire fox on her shoulder chirping loudly. Beneath her feet was a firefox seal shrouded in fighting aura. Like a beautiful fairy from the heavens, she leapt into Lin Muyu's arms in an instant. Lin Muyu laughed heartily as he subconsciously opened his arms and pulled Tang Xiaoxi into his embrace. He probably didn't even know how much he had missed this gentle and mischievous princess in the past half a month. In the end, the impact of Tang Xiaoxi's embrace was too great, and he tumbled off his warhorse with Lin Muyu. Wrapped in a white cloak, Lin Muyu slid down the grass for nearly 10 meters before coming to a stop. Xiaoxi, you've stepped into the heavenly realm? Lin Muyu asked with a smile as he held her in his arms. Tang Xiaoxi was as beautiful as a peach blossom, and she nodded with a flushed face. Amen. With Chu and Grand Deacon Lei Hong's help, I've already mastered the Firefox seal, and my cultivation has improved by leaps and bounds. That's great. Lin Muyu spun around and deftly stood up with the beautiful princess in his arms. He gently let go of Tang Xiaoxi's slender waist and said in a tone that was both sentimental and polite, Why did you come to Kathaya City with Lord Zhang Wei? Because I missed you. Tang Xiaoxi stuck out her tongue, not bothering to hide her longing for Lin Muyu at all. At the side, Wei Chou hugged his sword and smiled. Commander, when are you going to marry Princess Xi? Zhang Wei also smiled and cupped his fists. Congratulations, Lord Lin Muyu. You're about to become the son-in-law of Seven Seas Province. Lin Muyu blushed, and her heart thumped loudly. She tried her best to calm herself down and said with a smile, You guys don't hit me when I'm down, all right? Xiaoxi is still young. Still young? Zhang Wei grinned. My mother gave birth to me when she was 16, and Princess Xi is almost 20 now. Is she still young? He tilted his head and looked at the peaks beneath Tang Xiaoxi's chest. The girl's figure was unusually tall and straight, and that pair of shameful and proud breasts bulged out of the front of the princess's robe. Zhang Wei hurriedly wiped away his saliva and said, You're not young either. Tang Xiaoxi's face turned even redder. Suddenly, she opened her right hand and a flame mark rose slowly. It was the Tianchong seal, the fourth heaven of the Firefox seal. She smiled with a murderous aura. Zhang Wei, do you want to die? Zhang Wei's cultivation advanced slowly, and he had yet to step into the heaven realm. How could he be a match for Tang Xiaoxi? He couldn't help but tremble and said, Princess Xi, please spare my life. I didn't mean any disrespect when I spoke nonsense just now. Lin Muyu took the opportunity to hold Tang Xiaoxi's palm and dissolved the power of the Firefox seal. She smiled. Xiaoxi, don't stoop to his level. Let's go back to the camp with me. We'll break camp and return to Lanyan City in 1 or 2 days. Okay. She smiled sweetly. Zhang Wei cupped his fists. Then, I'll bring my men to take over the Fire Axe Mountains gold mine. Lady Lin Muyu, I'll leave Princess Xi's safety in your hands. Don't neglect her when I, old Zhang, send the beauty over. Lin Muyu grinned. I'll hand you over to the military law office if you speak nonsense again. Aha, old Zhang will take his leave. Goodbye, everyone. Zhang Wei tugged on the reins and led the Imperial Army cavalry away. Behind them were a group of miners and commoners pushing the carriages. It was no wonder that they took 10 days to arrive. It must have been hard on Tang Xiaoxi. She had to follow this group of uncouth men for 10 days. Holding Tang Xiaoxi's hand as they returned to the Longdan army camp, Lin Wuyu asked with a smile, "How strange. Xiaoxi, how could you have been patient enough to follow Zhang Wei's group for 10 days? Given your personality, you should have reached Kathaya City in 3 days." Tang Xiaoxi pouted and said pitifully, "You're still asking. Originally, Chu and Xiaoyin didn't allow me to come. It was only after much begging that they allowed me to follow Zhang Wei's 3,000 cavalry. I didn't eat or sleep well along the way. Now that we've finally arrived, and this is your territory, Mu, you have to treat me well." "Of course." Lin Wuyu beckoned for Luo Yu to come over, and took out a bag of Jining coins. Smiling, she said, "Luo Yu, send someone into the city and buy some good wine and food. I want to treat Princess Xi well tonight." "Yes, my lord." Luo Yu took the money pouch and raised his head to look at Tang Xiaoxi. Instantly, a trace of confusion flashed past his eyes. He was just a fellow with a knight-errant background, and had never seen such a beautiful woman before. Moreover, he had never seen such a noble young miss like Tang Xiaoxi. Instantly, he was in a trance. Tang Xiaoxi burst into laughter. "Luo Yu, what are you looking at? Who would look at the commander like that?" Her pretty little face blushed again. For a moment, she didn't know how to describe herself to Lin Wuyu and just stood there awkwardly. She wanted to put on the airs of a princess, but she was so embarrassed that she didn't know where to start. Lin Wuyu couldn't help but laugh at her beauty. "Luo Yu, hurry up and go. If you want to look, come back later. Xiaoxi is coming back to Lanyan City with us." Luo Yu calmed himself down and cupped his fists. "Yes, my lord. But don't worry, my lord. I won't look at my lord's woman again. Luo Yu is a reasonable person." Lin Wuyu went forward and patted his shoulder. He was indeed a reasonable person. Good brother. After sending Luo Yu away, they returned to the main tent. There was only Tang Xiaoxi and Lin Wuyu left in the tent. The two of them sat opposite each other, and felt a little awkward. They didn't know what to say. Finally, Lin Wuyu broke the awkward silence and said, "Xiaoxi, how's the process of cultivating the firefox seal?" Tang Xiaoxi blinked her big eyes and said, "Grandpa started teaching me the firefox seal when I wasn't even 6 years old. It's just that I couldn't cultivate it due to my physique. Now that I've opened the hidden latch, the firefox seal naturally came to fruition. On the same day, I cultivated the 3rd heaven of the firefox seal. In another 5 days, I cultivated the 4th heaven of the firefox seal. Grandpa Chu Chu said that with my perception, I might be able to cultivate the 7th heaven of the firefox seal in less than 2 months. He said that my talent far exceeds Brother Tang Bin's." "Is that so?" Lin Wuyu was also secretly delighted. "That's great. Xiaoxi has grown into a strong practitioner who possesses the firefox seal. This is a great thing for us." "Oh right, how's Xiaoyin's cultivation?" "It's all right. Xiaoyin's cultivation has always been fast. In the past 6 months, she has advanced by leaps and bounds. She originally planned to come with me to Tsangnan province, but unfortunately, Her Majesty didn't allow it. She had no choice but to continue cultivating in Zetian Palace." "Ha, is that so?" Lin Wuyu unwittingly smiled and said, "I haven't seen you and Xiaoyin for many days. I really miss you guys." Tang Xiaoxi pouted and said with a look of disbelief, "You're now a general who commands thousands of troops. I thought you were already immersed in military affairs and didn't have time to miss us." "How could that be?" Lin Wuyu smiled and said, "I'm immersed in military affairs only because the Empire needs me. Oh right, we'll break camp and return to Lanyan City tomorrow. Eat more tonight and sleep early." Amen. At night, Luo Yu and a few mercenaries from the Longdan army camp brought food and wine from Kathaya City along with a few cooks. Only Princess Xi could receive such treatment. They made a table full of food and wine and placed it in the tent. However, Lin Wuyu and Tang Xiaoxi definitely couldn't finish it, so they invited Luo Yu, Wei Chou, Qi Ying, and the other generals to eat together. This caused Qi Ying, Wei Chou, and the others to almost cry. They had fought in the army for almost half their lives, but they had never eaten with someone as noble as a princess. So when their tears fell into the soup, they seemed to enjoy the meal even more. Lin Muyu secretly cursed these guys for being useless as she picked food for Tang Xiaoxi, making Tang Xiaoxi so happy that she was bursting with joy. They had just finished eating when a soldier reported that Shenyang had finally arrived at Kathaya City with 15,000 infantrymen. However, the battle was already over, and it didn't seem appropriate to leave just like that. Therefore, Lin Muyu arranged a retreat route for him. Along the way, they would sweep away a few of the newly risen branches of the Hall of Chivalry in Lanyan City. It could be considered as doing the people a favor. Chapter 220. After traveling for 3 days, he returned to Lanyan City and handed the tiger tally to Qiying to bring back to Qihai Pass to hand it in. The Longdan army camp was brought back to Dragon Rocky Mountain by Luoyu and Fengxi. They also trained the 4,000 new recruits. In this way, the total number of people in the Longdan army camp had reached 9,648, which was close to 10,000 people. Lin Muyu could be considered to have an army of 10,000 people outside. It could be said to be a mighty force. However, the price was that he had to pay Luoyu another 500,000 Jinyin coins for the cost of weapons, rations, and war horses. It was very expensive to raise this mercenary army that did not rob the common people. Fortunately, Lin Muyu could afford it for now. At night, Zetian Palace held a celebration banquet. The Emperor Qinjin and Princess Qinyin personally celebrated for Lin Muyu, Wei Chou, and the others. This trip had directly wiped out the forces of the House of Chivalry in Songnan Province. Even if they were to rise from the ashes, they would no longer have the momentum they had in the past. After 3 rounds of drinking, everyone was a little tipsy. At this time, Qinjin stood up and said with a smile, You haven't returned to Zetian Palace for a long time. Imperial Father has something to say to you. Come, you and Xiao Yin can come to the rear hall together. Yes, Your Majesty. Lin Muyu bowed respectfully. Qin Yin smiled and walked over. She held his cloak and followed this sworn brother into the rear hall with a smile. The rear hall was empty, but the candles were brightly lit. The maids and officials had already been dismissed by Qinjin. Under the candlelight, Qinjin, who was wearing a dragon robe with golden dragons circling around it, stood with his hands behind his back and his back facing Lin Muyu. He said, How is Songnan Province? Lin Muyu was stunned. She did not know why he suddenly asked such a question. She cupped her fists and said, Prosperous, strong and prosperous. That's all? Qinjin turned around, raised his brows and asked again, I heard that you've already fought with Long Qianlin, an outstanding general of the younger generation in Five Valley City. What do you think of Long Qianlin? Lin Muyu was calm as she replied, General Long Qianlin is a talented general with great command skills. The Flying Mount Battalion under his command is the cream of the crop. I have to admit that I'm no match for Long Qianlin if we were to clash on the battlefield. Really? Qinjin smiled faintly and said, But I heard that Long Qianlin led the Flying Mount Battalion to attack the mountain. But he didn't get the slightest benefit from your hands, you. To be more precise, Long Qianlin lost to your strategy. No. Lin Muyu said faintly, he didn't lose in terms of strategy, but in terms of equipment and vanguard. I brought along the most elite heavy cavalry of the Tianchong army, and 60 imperial guards to assist me in battle. The archery skills of Wei Chou and the others can be said to be the best in the world. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the Flying Cavalry Battalion would have already taken down the Fire Axe Mountain. Let's not talk about this. Qinjin suddenly changed the topic and asked, Do you know that Hu Tianning privately minted Jinyin coins? Lin Muyu was slightly startled, and cold sweat involuntarily soaked his clothes. He cupped his fists and said with knitted brows, I didn't know. It's good that you didn't know. Qinjin smiled faintly and reached out to pat his shoulder. He said, If you know and don't report, your crime is the same as deceiving the ruler. Do you understand? This general understands. Lin Muyu almost didn't dare to raise his head to look at Qinjin's burning gaze. Who would dare say that Qin Jin was a muddle-headed and incompetent ruler? Lin Wuyu definitely wouldn't agree. The Qin Jin before him was filled with wisdom, so much so that Lin Wuyu felt afraid. Your Majesty. He paused for a moment, then asked, since your Majesty knows that Hu Tianning privately minted coins, why didn't you send troops to denounce him? Denounce him? Qin Jin couldn't help but smile. I only sent people to find out this information. How could I so easily attack a feudal lord without real evidence? Moreover, Long Qianlin is Hu Tianning's son-in-law and holds the military power of Zhongnan Province's 120,000 soldiers. If he really rebelled, I'm afraid Lanyan City would suffer a great calamity. You still have a lot to learn. Lin Wuyu raised his head and glanced at him. She saw some affection in Qin Jin's eyes and asked, Imperial Father, do you already feel that you can't control Zhongnan Province? Yes, Qin Jin nodded without denying it. He sighed and said, Hu Tianning was once a general under the divine Marquis Zheng Yifan. He is brave and skilled in battle, and has a lot of prestige in the army. His son-in-law Long Qianlin now holds a large number of troops, and his nephew, Xiang Yu, is the commander of the military police battalion. He's a high-ranking general who controls the entire army. It's true that I can't go to war with Zhongnan Province right now. If I touch Hu Tianning, Zhongnan Province will definitely rebel. Lin Wuyu was silent for a few seconds. Then she said, but if we delay for too long, I'm afraid unforeseen events will occur. Qin Jin smiled slightly. Yes, so I have a task to entrust to you. In the entire imperial capital, only you are the most suitable person to complete this task, so... Oh, what task? Lin Wuyu was stunned. Qin Yin, who was standing to the side, blushed but didn't say anything. Qin Jin stroked his beard and smiled. We want you to accompany Xiao Yin on a trip to her maternal grandfather's house. Miyu City? Yes. Qin Jin raised his head and said, You have to go to Yunzhong Province and do something as important as the heavens for us. Lin Wuyu's heart sank. She seemed to have guessed something and said, It has something to do with Zhongnan Province, right? Qin Jin smiled. You is indeed extremely intelligent. In fact, you should have guessed that most of the documents we send to Yunzhong Province will be intercepted. Zheng Yifan's influence is too great. If I send an imperial edict to invite Xiao Yin's maternal grandfather, Duke Muyun, to dispatch troops to the Five Valleys city, I'm afraid that this imperial edict will be discovered halfway through the journey. Moreover, ordinary people won't be able to meet Duke Muyun, so you'll have to disguise yourself and escort Xiao Yin to Yunzhong Province. It's just as Chu said, Xiao Yin needs real experience. Your Majesty, wouldn't this be inappropriate? Lin Wuyu was stunned. If it's only me, I'm afraid it'll be difficult to ensure Xiao Yin's safety. Don't you have confidence in yourself? Qin Jin looked at him indifferently and said, Among the wind, rain, thunder, and lightning four, you and Feng Jixing are the strongest. We can also see that your cultivation may be above Feng Jixing's, so no one is more suitable to accompany Xiao Yin to Yunzhong Province than you. Moreover, in the imperial capital, Chu has been playing chess with divine Marquis Zheng Yifan every day, and has Zheng Yifan firmly under his control in the imperial capital. With your and Xiao Yin's cultivation, who else do you have to worry about? Lin Wuyu was startled. It seemed that, as the emperor said, she was already so strong. With the addition of Qin Yin, who had the god-binding chains and the strength of the heaven realm, who else could there be? Perhaps Xiang Yu would be one, but Xiang Yu would never make a move against Qin Yin. After all, if he wanted to be promoted and get rich, he had to protect Qin Yin, the heir to the throne. If the world really fell into chaos, Xiang Yu might not even be able to make it as a commander. Moreover, Lin Wuyu had now comprehended the fourth element of the seven luminaries' profound energy, and her strength had improved by leaps and bounds. Even if Xiang Yu really came, he and Qin Yin might not lose even if they joined forces. The most important thing was disguise. As long as they disguised themselves well, no one would be able to discover them. Clap, clap. Qin Jin clapped his hands and said with a smile, Bring out the luggage. Immediately, two attendants walked over with a tray in their hands. On the tray were two sets of tattered clothes. One set of men's clothes and the other set of women's clothes. They looked as if they had been stripped from the bodies of beggars on the streets. Beside the women's clothes was a worn-out 7-string zither, and beside the men's clothes was a rusty iron sword. This is... Lin Muyu was completely confused. Qin Jin stroked his beard and said with a smile, Chu has already prepared identities for you. A pair of brother and sister who are traveling the martial world. The younger sister plays the zither for a living while the older brother performs sword dances and acrobatics for a living. What do you think? He actually looked a little pleased with himself. What else could Lin Muyu say? She cupped her fists and said, Your Majesty is mighty. Qin Yin, on the other hand, looked excited. She said with a smile, Big brother you, does this mean that you've already agreed to go sightseeing with me? No, to train in the martial world? Lin Muyu looked at her helplessly and said, Amen, but Xiao Yin, you must be prepared to endure hardships. The outside world is not like the Zetian Palace Hall. There are many hardships that you can't imagine. I know. Qin Jin said with a smile. Qin Jin smiled and said, I've already asked people to prepare 2 old horses for you. You two can take your time to get to Cloud Province. Don't be in a hurry, and remember to make a living as a performer along the way. Also, you'll have to find someone to help you disguise yourselves. Otherwise, with your looks, it'll be difficult for you two not to be recognized. Yes. Sure enough, Qin Jin ordered 2 maidservants to style Lin Muyu and Qin Yin. An hour later, Lin Muyu's face had 2 scars that had coagulated for a long time, while Qin Yin's beautiful face was covered with a few freckles and other stains. This caused the number 1 beauty in the empire to instantly fall out of the top 10,000. However, the outstanding looks between her brows could still be vaguely seen. Following the emperor's orders, they were not allowed to greet anyone. Thus, they left Lanyan City in the middle of the night, and mingled with a group of acrobats who were entering the palace to perform. They left Zetian Palace Hall and rode 2 thin and weak old horses out of Lanyan City. The cold wind blew in the night. Lin Muyu wore a thin cloak, and carried the dragon spirit sword and a rusty iron sword wrapped in black cloth on her back. After leaving the city, she turned to look at Qin Yin, only to find that the princess was holding the 7-string zither on her back, and holding the reins. Her eyes were like stars as she looked at everything outside excitedly and curiously. Her heart was jumping with joy like a bird that had just been released from its cage. Are you happy? Lin Muyu asked with a smile. Qin Yin smiled faintly. Of course I'm happy to come out to train with Big Brother you. Where's Big Brother you? Are you happy coming out with Xiao Yin? Yes. Lin Muyu nodded and said with a smile. I'm afraid that if I say I'm not happy, you'll push me out. Qin Yin burst into laughter. Don't always make me laugh. Xiao Shi said that girls who laugh all the time will get wrinkles very early. Alright. I won't tease you anymore. Hurry up and find an inn on the official road outside the city as soon as possible. Yes. Chapter 221. The Cloud Ancient Road was one of the oldest official roads in the empire. It led from Lanyan City to Muyu City. There were hundreds of guest houses along the way. It was said that the Cloud Ancient Road was even older than the Qin Empire. It had existed for tens of thousands of years. The night was dark. A man and a woman rode their horses slowly on the ancient road. Lin Muyu touched the neck of the horse. She couldn't help but feel sorry for it. This old horse was probably about the same age as her. It was dying, but it still had to do such a hard job. He looked up at the sky and couldn't help but worry. The clouds are dense. It's either going to snow or rain. Qin Yin tied her cloak with a ladle-like button in front of her chest. She smiled and said, Brother you, since we came out together, shouldn't we give each other a new name? Sure. What should I call you? How about this, we'll use your surname. I'm Lin Yin and you're Lin Yu. What do you think? Lin Yu. Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile. It sounds like we're going to get wet in the rain. It's a bit ominous. As soon as he finished speaking, a drop of rain fell on his nose. He wiped it. It was a little cold. He hurriedly grabbed the reins and said, It's going to rain. Xiao Yin, let's go quickly. There should be a small town ahead. Okay. It didn't take long for the winter rain to start. Fortunately, there was a dim light on the road ahead. There was a house. Dismounting from the horse, Lin Muyu picked up a worn-out oil paper umbrella and opened it with a whoosh, only to find that there were 7 or 8 holes in it. She couldn't help but smile. Qin Jin really didn't care about his daughter and godson. The umbrella he prepared for them was almost dispensable. However, he still covered Qin Yin with the umbrella. Qin Yin looked up at him and smiled sweetly. No need. I'll use the cloak to block the wind and rain. But your cloak is only made of coarse cloth. It can't block the rain at all. Oh, that's true. Qin Yin stuck out her tongue, almost forgetting that she was no longer wearing the exquisite princess cloak. The two of them led the horse and walked towards the light. After a few minutes, they entered the small town. They could see restaurants and inns in the distance. There were many merchants, cultivators, mercenaries, and travelers on the ancient cloud path. The business in the small town along the way was very good, especially when it was raining and they were in the middle of nowhere. There were more and more people in the town. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin didn't stand out when they walked in the crowd. After all, the shabby cloaks they wore made them look no different from people who wandered the world. First, they found a place to eat and rest. Lin Muyu's eyes kept looking at the shops on both sides. Suddenly, her eyes stopped on a huge horizontal board with a line of words written on it. She couldn't help but read it aloud. The beef cow hates the pot and the iron mountain. Wow, there's actually such a domineering poem in this rural area. What poem? Qin Yin pouted and held his hand. Why don't you read it upside down? Lin Muyu was speechless. She wanted to find a hole to hide in. She pouted and said, just write it properly. Why do they have to write it upside down? I really can't see through them. Qin Yin held back her laughter. Brother, where are we going to sleep tonight? How about this iron pot restaurant? Let's eat first and then find a place to sleep. No. Qin Yin's beautiful eyes were like water. She glanced at their clothes and laughed softly. Do you think our attire and occupation are suitable to eat expensive beef loaf? That's true. Lin Muyu pointed to the front and said, there's a wine shop there. It also provides accommodation. Let's stay there? Yes. Qin Yin smiled and nodded. The tavern was bustling with people, and business was good. There was an umbrella dragon's head hanging on the eaves of the tavern. It looked a little scary, and the name of the tavern was written below it, Umbrella Dragon Tavern. From afar, a waiter greeted them with a smile on his face. Would you like to have a meal or stay here? Yes, we are. Lin Muyu asked. How much does it cost to stay here for a night? The waiter led the horse over and smiled. The two of you are husband and wife, right? A first-class husband and wife room is only 10 silver coins a night. Lin Muyu was about to agree immediately. He didn't want Qin Yin to suffer too much with him. However, he didn't expect Qin Yin to take off her cloak and reveal a freckled face. She smiled and said, Waiter, how much is a second-class room for a night? 3 silver coins. Then give us a second-class room. All right, please come in. I will help you get a room and feed the horse. Thank you. After entering the wine shop, they found that it was indeed a foul atmosphere. There were dozens of tables in the huge wine shop's lobby, and almost all of them were occupied. There were all kinds of people. There were wild mercenaries wielding axes, gentle scholars, and even merchants silently calculating their gains and losses. All of them were busy with their own things. Lin Muyu held Qin Yin's hand and sat down in a corner of the wine shop. He called out to the waiter and asked, Xiao Yin, what would you like to eat? Qin Yin smiled and said in a natural and unrestrained manner, Let's eat something simple. After all, we don't have much silver coins left. Waiter, can we have 2 portions of coarse bread and a bowl of vegetable soup? All right, please wait for a moment. The waiter nodded and bowed before leaving. Not long after, their dinner was served. Even Lin Muyu, who was used to the harsh life in the army, was stunned. The coarse bread was really coarse and as hard as iron. She almost had to use the dragon spirit sword to slice it. As for the vegetable soup, it was already slightly cold. No wonder these 2 servings of food only cost 10 copper coins. Qin Yin looked at Lin Muyu and couldn't help but smile. She dipped the coarse bread into the vegetable soup and said, Brother, it can be bitten like this. Oh, is that so? Lin Muyu looked at her with a smile. Qinin opened her cherry lips and took a bite of the bread. Suddenly, she was petrified. How could she have known that the bread was so hard? She blushed and put down the bread. Looks like I'll have to soak it a little longer. Lin Muyu laughed heartily. It wasn't easy to eat something warm in this cold weather. Moreover, they couldn't show off their skills here. Otherwise, it would be easy for others to discover the truth. After finishing the meal with great difficulty, the waiter of the tavern clapped his hands and said with a smile, "Dear friends of Jianghu and Yinzhong Ancient Road, next up is the wonderful program that this tavern has prepared for everyone. Our shopkeeper has specially invited a few exquisite beauties from the western region. They are good at playing the huqin. I hope that everyone will do me the honor. Ha, please." Amidst the hustle and bustle, 5 women dressed in thin clothes walked to the simple wooden stage in the center of the hall with huqin in their arms. After bowing gracefully, they began to play and sing some songs that Lin Muyu couldn't understand. Although she couldn't understand them, the melody seemed pretty good. Qinin sat there with a smile on her face, enjoying the moment of peace. After the song, the waiter walked up to the stage again and put his arm around the shoulders of 2 of the beauties from the western region. He smiled and said, "Friends, as you can see, the beauties of our Umbrella Dragon Tavern are both talented and skilled. It's winter now, and the weather is cold. I'm sure all of you don't want to sleep alone. We've all tasted the feeling of being alone. So, you can bring these 5 beauties back to your room to accompany you to sleep. However, the highest bidder wins. Now, is there anyone willing to bring the beauties on my left?" A drunk mercenary in the crowd raised his axe high and laughed. 5, I want all of them. 5 Jinin coins deal. Whoever dares to compete with me, I'll chop him in half with my axe. The waiter was stunned. He smiled and said, "Sir, the number of beauties in the tavern is limited. You can't take them all. Besides, isn't 1 Jinin coin too cheap?" "None of your business. I want them." The mercenary carried his axe and staggered forward. The waiter's eyes flashed and he suddenly stepped forward. His palm was filled with xinqi, and he seized the mercenary's vital acupoint on the mercenary's wrist. He pushed the mercenary out of the door and said with a smile, "Sir, you've drunk too much. You'd better rest early." The waiter pushed the mercenary away lightly, and the mercenary fell into the mud outside with a grunt. Lin Muyu frowned. She didn't expect there to be such an expert in the tavern. That waiter was at least at the 2nd level of the Earth realm. Everyone continued to eat and drink. Haha, let's continue to fight for these Western region beauties. The waiter nodded and bowed to the crowd with a cheeky smile. Soon, the 5 Western region women were taken away to serve the guests, and the tavern fell into an awkward atmosphere. They probably didn't prepare any other programs. At this moment, Qinin stood up and said to the waiter, "My brother and I are entertainers who travel the martial world. May I ask if we can perform a song for everyone in your tavern?" The waiter's eyes lit up. Although Qinin had put on makeup, the waiter could still see the girl's elegant and refined appearance. He nodded and smiled. "Sure, please, miss." "Okay, thank you." Qinin tugged at Lin Muyu, a gentle smile in her eyes. She laughed softly and said, "I've said that we'll be performing along the way. You can't be lazy. Xiaoyin, play the zither, I'll practice the sword." "Okay." Lin Muyu braced himself and walked onto the stage with Qinin. He raised his hand and pulled out the rusty iron sword on his back. He cupped his fists and smiled at the crowd. He said loudly, "My sister and I are entertainers in the martial world. We pass by this place, so we will perform a zither dance to thank you. If you think it's good, you can give us some money. If you think it's not good, you can just laugh it off." Everyone was solemn, and their eyes all fell on Qinin beside him. They were all looking at the beautiful girls. Who had time to look at the handsome guy? Qinin sat down gracefully. Her Royal Highness's temperament and etiquette were not something that ordinary women could possess. She tightened the strings of the 7-stringed guqin and placed it on her thighs. With a light wave of her hand, the first melody was already playing in the tavern. It was melodious and sweet, as if a young girl was expressing her thoughts. Lin Muyu was a little speechless. He was good at killing people with a sword, but to accompany a sword dance, This was a little difficult for him. In desperation, he followed the rhythm of the melody and waved his long sword gently. There was nothing else but the routine of the wind-riding swordsmanship. Chapter 222. In the middle of the song, the river suddenly changed. Qin Yin's melody instantly changed from a gentle melody to the clanging of horses and spears. Lin Muyu also understood what she meant. With a flick of his wrist, the blade of his sword cut through the wind. He performed the wind formula of the wind-riding sword technique. The rusty iron sword in his hand seemed to have turned into a sharp killing weapon. Streaks of cold light flashed on the stage. Seeing this, the group of rangers and mercenaries in the tavern couldn't help but cheer. Although he was just selling his artiste, this young man's swordsmanship seemed to be quite accomplished. The reason why Lin Muyu showed this move was simple. He wanted to tell those who had fantasies about Qin Yin to think about his strength. If they couldn't even defeat him, then they shouldn't think about him anymore. At the end of the song, many swordsmen and mercenaries below the stage took out their money and tossed it onto the stage. Ding ding dang 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 dang. There were silver kin coins, copper kin coins, and even gold kin coins. Lin Muyu picked up the money from the white pouch. Of course, he couldn't let Qin Yin do this. When he raised his head, he saw Qin Yin looking at him with a gentle gaze. "What's wrong?" he asked. Qin Yin smiled faintly. "Nothing. I think today is the happiest day of my life." "Is that so?" Lin Muyu raised his eyebrows and smiled. "It's okay. You'll still be as happy in the future." "Really?" "Yes." "That's great." Qin Yin's girlish demeanor deepened. She snuggled up to Lin Muyu. The group of hot-blooded mercenaries and rangers couldn't stand it anymore. Perhaps, if Qin Yin removed her makeup and revealed her true appearance, these people would be even more mesmerized. After all, the title of the #1 beauty in Lanyan City wasn't just for show. When Lin Muyu and Qin Yin returned to their seats, the door of the tavern suddenly creaked open. In the cold wind, a man in a black cloak walked in. He lifted the cloak and revealed a resolute face. With a faint smile, he said, "Shopkeeper, do you need people to perform tricks here?" The waiter looked at him in disdain. "What do you know?" The man smiled. "I tame some small pets to entertain all of you." "There's no need to embarrass yourself by taming pets like monkeys and dogs. No, what I tamed was something else." "What? Bring it out." "Okay." The man whistled behind him and smiled. "Little umbrella, come out." Roar. It was a young dragon's roar. An umbrella dragon at least 3 meters long climbed up from outside. Its golden eyes looked at the people around it without a trace of fear. However, the people in the tavern were startled. "Umbrella dragon. Oh my god, it's a 200-year-old umbrella dragon. Who is this kid? How can he tame a dragon? Could he be the legendary Dragon Knight? Bullshasterisk. Have you seen a dragon knight riding an umbrella dragon?" At this moment, the dragon tamer walked in and said with a smile, "My name is Du Yiming. I'm a juggler in the pugilistic world. I tamed a young umbrella dragon by chance, so I brought it here to perform for all of you. If you have money, please support me. If you don't have money, please support me. I thank all of you." Du Yiming looked refined. He raised his left arm. Instantly, the umbrella dragon cried out and placed its front paw on Du Yiming's hand. It actually learned to walk with him. The umbrella-shaped wings on its huge head opened, and a pair of golden eyes looked at the people around it with curiosity. It was quite cute. Qin Yin couldn't help but laugh. "Big brother you, this umbrella dragon is so interesting." Lin Muyu nodded and smiled. She didn't say anything. She was more concerned about how Du Yiming could tame a 200-year-old umbrella dragon. He looked like he was only at the first level of Earth Realm. The umbrella dragon wasn't just an ordinary spirit beast. It was a low-level dragon. On the stage, the young umbrella dragon rolled around and ran around, making the group of travelers laugh. Silver and copper coins naturally fell onto the stage. Du Yiming knelt on one knee. As he picked up the coins, his gaze fell on Qin Yin, who was sitting in the corner. His heart was in turmoil. This young lady was not simple. Her words, actions, and appearance were all top-notch. If it weren't for the freckles on her face, she would be a peerless beauty. After the juggling, Du Yiming asked for a bowl of meat soup and 2 pieces of soft bread. He walked over with the umbrella dragon and said with a smile, "Young hero, young lady, there are no extra seats here. Can I share a table?" Lin Muyu nodded and smiled. "Go ahead." "Thank you." In the end, the umbrella dragon knelt on Qin Yin's body. It blinked its big eyes, and the umbrella leaves around its head opened and closed slowly. It seemed to be acting cute. Qin Yin's maiden heart melted. She wasn't afraid. She reached out and gently stroked the umbrella dragon's head. She smiled and said, "Wow, what a good little dragon." Du Yiming chewed the bread and smiled. "Young lady, do you like my little umbrella?" "Yes." Qin Yin didn't deny it. Du Yiming smiled. "May I know where you and young lady are from and where are you going?" Lin Muyu said, "My name is Lin Yu, and this is my younger sister Lin Yin. We've been performing and wandering the world. This time, we're going to Muyu City. I heard that it's better to be a performer there." "I see." Du Yiming smiled. "I'm Du Yiming and I'm going to Muyu City too. How about the 3 of us travel together? We can take care of each other this way. Is that okay?" Lin Muyu furrowed her brows, showing a hint of unwillingness. Du Yiming was a smart man. He looked at Qin Yin and said with a smile, "Young lady Lin Yin seems to like my little umbrella very much. They can spend more time together on the way. No need." Qin Yin's beautiful eyes were shining with wisdom. "My brother and I are used to wandering the world alone. We won't disturb you." "I see." Du Yiming was a little disappointed. He said with a smile, "I thought that if young lady Lin Yin likes the little umbrella, I could share my knowledge of animal taming with you." "Animal taming?" Lin Muyu's heart skipped a beat. He knew the power of a spirit beast. Didn't the pale crane almost kill the king with the help of a 10,000-year dragon snake? If Qin Yin learned animal taming, it would definitely be a good thing. Thinking of this, he immediately cupped his fists and said with a smile, "Xiaoyin likes small animals. If young Master Du is really willing to teach her animal taming, let's travel together." Du Yiming laughed. "Okay, it's a deal. Let's set off together tomorrow morning?" "Okay." Late at night, the rain was getting heavier. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled outside. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin's room was near the periphery. The lightning seemed to have turned into a tomahawk and was about to tear the window open. Qin Yin was restless lying on the bed. She tilted her head and looked at Lin Muyu who was lying on the ground. She pouted and said, "Brother, it's too cold on the ground. Why don't you come up? I'm a little scared." Lin Muyu rolled up his cloak. In fact, he was also very cold. "We are brother and sister. What are you worried about?" Qin Yin said again. Lin Muyu debated with himself for a few seconds. He immediately wrapped himself in his cloak and stood up. He came to the bed and sat down. Qin Yin giggled. "Why don't you take off your cloak? If you think it's inappropriate for men and women to touch each other, you can sleep with your clothes on." "Okay." Lin Muyu took off his cloak. Qin Yin lifted one side of the blanket and said with a smile, "Don't worry. Father won't know about this. You don't have to worry." This sentence made Lin Muyu's face turn red. "I'm not scared." "Then why are you trembling with fear? Look at you, your face is pale." While he was stuttering, Qin Yin pressed him down on the bed and covered him with the blanket. In the end, Lin Muyu's heart was beating extremely fast. He lay there as if he was about to faint. Qin Yin's face turned even redder. She turned to look out the window. Looking at the thunder and lightning, her beautiful face had a trace of loneliness. She said, Who are you?" Lin Muyu was stunned. In fact, he also knew that his identity was too suspicious. He was incompatible with this world. Qin Yin was so smart. How could she not guess something? On the other hand, Qin Yin closed her eyes. Her face was full of peace. She said, "No matter who you are, hug me. Xiaoyin likes you." She said it very calmly. Lin Muyu's mind went blank. He hesitated for a few seconds. He felt that he had to obey the princess's order. Otherwise, he would be committing an unpardonable crime. So he turned around and put his arm across Qin Yin's slender waist. He gently hugged her. Xiaoyin likes me. What kind is it? He asked. Qin Yin's delicate body trembled slightly. Her soft hand gently covered Lin Muyu's palm. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly. It seemed to confirm her heart at this moment. After a while she said faintly, "For a lifetime, we love each other." Lin Muyu's heart warmed. Although he was confused, there was one thing he was sure of. He liked Qin Yin. He liked everything about her. The person he liked also liked him. This was a great blessing. His palm unconsciously tightened. He hugged Qin Yin and said, "It's a pity that I don't belong to this world." Xiaoyin, however, Qin Yin suddenly turned around and their eyes met, interrupting him from continuing. Her bright eyes shone with a mesmerizing light as she looked deeply into Lin Muyu's eyes. She smiled faintly and said, "No matter who you is, no matter where you come from, and no matter how many people object, nothing can stop me from liking you. What do you think?" Lin Muyu was so moved that he was about to cry. Qin Yin said softly, "Brother Yu, if one day Xiaoyin ascends to the throne and becomes the empress, are you willing to be the empress for me?" Be the empress? Lin Muyu was stunned again. "I don't even know what to eat tomorrow morning. I really don't know how to answer you when you ask me such a faraway plan." Qin Yin giggled. She stretched out her snow-white arms and hugged his neck. "Sleep, sleep." But how could he sleep like this? Chapter 223. The next morning, the heavy rain did not stop, but they could not delay their journey, so they had to set off after breakfast. They bought 2 new cloaks with the money they earned from performing last night. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin put them on. This was a kind of cloak that could block the wind and rain, and was very suitable for traveling. "Young hero Lin, why are your eyes so red?" Du Yiming was leading a horse, and he saw the key problem at a glance. Of course, Lin Muyu could not say that she slept with Qin Yin last night, tossing and turning the whole night between touching her and not touching her, and she did not sleep at all. If she said that, Qin Yin would kill her, so she said, "I'm not used to the climate here, so I can't sleep." "Oh, I see. I have a bottle of tranquilizer here. If you don't mind, please accept it." "No need, thank you." Lin Muyu did not want to owe people too much, so she refused flatly, then came to Qin Yin's side, helped her up the horse and said with a smile, "Let's go, let's continue our journey." "Okay." Qin Yin nodded with a smile, and her beautiful face was slightly rosy, as beautiful as the morning clouds, like a newly married young wife, and Lin Muyu was a little dazed. Indeed, beautiful women, this species was absolutely lethal to men. He could not help but think of the question Qin Yin asked last night. "Do you like me or Xiaoxi?" "I like both." "Then which one do you like more?" "I like both." "Humph, bastard, do you still want to eat both?" Her Royal Highness threatened fiercely. "In the future, you can only like me. Oh no, only like me a little more, or I'll ask father to cut your salary." "It's okay, I have money." "Boo-hoo, I'm so angry." Women were the ultimate creatures of jealousy, and men were probably the ultimate creatures of control. In fact, when they were petty, they were much scarier than women. The 3 of them rode slowly on the ancient path in the clouds. Lin Muyu held an umbrella and rested with her eyes closed. She silently circulated the dragon-forging bone remnant scroll to temper her bloodline and battle aura in order to raise her cultivation. At the same time, she extended her spirit pulse technique. There was no one with a strong aura within a radius of several miles. She guessed that they had not been followed. Beside her, Du Yiming was trying to please Qin Yin. The umbrella dragon was following the 3 of them in the forest not far away. "Young Master Du, didn't you say that you would teach Xiaoyin the animal taming technique?" Lin Muyu suddenly asked. Du Yiming came to a sudden realization. "Oh, I almost forgot. All right, then I'll start teaching Miss Xiaoyin the mantra of the art of taming beasts. Repeat after me. The spirit of all beasts has a ruler. Heaven's creation has endless uses." Lin Muyu continued to close her eyes and rested. She didn't try to secretly learn it. After all, it would be the same for Qin Yin to teach her after she learned it. Not long after, Du Yiming began to teach Qin Yin how to communicate with wild beasts and communicate with them. However, it seemed that Qin Yin still couldn't grasp the gist of it. After trying a few times, she couldn't even communicate with the warhorse. Du Yiming, on the other hand, patted his warhorse's head and said, "Horse, horse, cry 3 times for me to hear." The warhorse raised its head and cried 3 times. It was very magical. It seemed that this Du Yiming did have some ability. Oh! Qinin closed her eyes, but she still couldn't communicate with the warhorse. She couldn't help but feel a little frustrated. Lin Muyu gently said, "Don't rush, take it slow." This immediately calmed Qinin down. She smiled and nodded. Yes, this made Du Yiming feel bad. A look of jealousy flashed across his face. At dusk, the heavy rain seemed to be about to stop. Qinin pulled the belt of the cloak in front of her chest and lifted the hood on her head. Her long hair fluttered gently in the wind. She touched her wet face, but she didn't want to touch the freckles. She carelessly stuck the freckles on her hand. Lin Muyu saw this and hurriedly said, "Xiaoyin, you're that?" Ah. Qinin didn't know. She looked at him with wide eyes. "What's wrong?" At this time, Du Yiming looked over and saw Qin Yin's snow-white and flawless face. Suddenly, that gorgeous and graceful peerless face appeared in front of him. Du Yiming's eyes widened in an instant. He was almost petrified. He murmured, "There's actually such a fairy-like woman in this world." Only then did Qinin realize that her freckles had fallen off. It was useless to be anxious. Anyway, she couldn't hide it from Du Yiming. Lin Muyu was calmer and said, "Stick it on." "Okay." Qinin stuck the freckles on her face again, reducing her beauty by more than 50%. Lin Muyu said with a smile, "Young Master Du, my sister Xiaoyin is indeed outstanding. The martial world is dangerous. For the convenience of traveling, we can only use this method. I hope you can keep this secret for us." Of course, Du Yiming nodded repeatedly. "It's getting late. Let's walk a few more miles and find an inn to stay in?" Okay. Not long before, there was indeed an inn. Du Yiming led the horse and walked in front. He said with a smile, "I know the innkeeper of this inn. He's an old friend of mine. His name is Lu Jun. He'll definitely prepare a cheap first-class room for us tonight." "Okay, thank you." After entering the inn, as expected, a wretched-looking man of about 30 years old came forward. He said with a smile, "Brother Du, long time no see. How have you been?" Good. Du Yiming caressed the head of the umbrella dragon and said with a smile, "Brother Lu, my 2 friends and I will be staying here for the night. Sorry to disturb you. Could you please arrange 2 superior rooms for them?" "Okay, no problem." Lu Jun laughed loudly, but his eyes lingered on Qinin. Lin Muyu was a little angry. This Lu Jun was not a good person. He was very despicable. But since she was in someone else's territory, she would endure it if she could. This time, it was a superior room. There were 2 beds, and the bedding was very soft. At least she could sleep well. If she continued to hug Qinin to sleep, Lin Muyu was very sure that she would not be able to sleep at all. It was too unbearable. After dinner, they went to bed early. But for safety's sake, Lin Muyu still spread out the spirit pulse art and maintained a state of alert under the condition of light sleep. On the other hand, Qinin hugged the quilt and slept very sweetly, lying on her side on the bed facing Lin Muyu. Her sleeping face looked very beautiful. Late at night, Lin Muyu opened her eyes and let out a sigh of relief. The spirit pulse art was still spread out, searching for the surrounding energy aura. There were 2 cultivators living downstairs, both of whom were at the 3rd sky of the human realm. They were quite strong, but in Lin Muyu's eyes, they were not worth mentioning. Soon, her spirit pulse art found Du Yiming's room, but she found 2 auras. Something was wrong. Lin Muyu immediately used her battle energy to strengthen the hearing of the spirit pulse art. She could faintly hear the conversation between Du Yiming and Lu Jun. "Brother Du, these 2 people today. How did you know them? That girl looks like she's a real gem." "Brother Lu, you really have a good eye. Actually, the stain on Lin Yin's face is fake. If she removes the disguise, she can be said to be a peerless beauty. I really pity her. Is it really like what Brother Du said?" "It's absolutely true. If it wasn't for the sake of learning the animal taming art from me, I'm afraid that Lin Yu wouldn't have let me follow them. Heh. They don't know that I've slightly modified the formula. No matter how smart Lin Yin is, she won't be able to learn the animal taming art. Brother Du, when are we going to make our move? That Lin Yu has 2 swords with him. It looks like he's quite strong. No matter how strong he is, he's only at the first sky of the Earth realm. After midnight, a tube of sleeping incense will make him unconscious. At that time, we'll enjoy that beauty Lin Yin first, then kill Lin Yu and sell her to the biggest restaurant in Lanyan City as a hostess. With her beauty, we can sell her for at least 10,000 Jining coins. Okay, I'll prepare the sleeping incense. Okay. Lin Muyu slowly opened her eyes and sighed inwardly at the sinister nature of people. She got up and went to Qin Yin's side. She patted her shoulder and said softly, "Xiao Yin, wake up." Qin Yin, however, seemed to be dreaming. She opened her arms and hugged Lin Muyu. She mumbled, "Big brother you." This call almost made Lin Muyu drown, but she still opened her palm and the spirit pulse technique seeped into Qin Yin's mind. In the next moment, Qin Yin had already woken up. She opened her eyes wide and blushed. "Big brother you. What do you want to do?" "What else can I do?" Lin Muyu shook her head helplessly. She took out 2 bottles of concentration powder from her universe bag and said, "Du Yiming and Lu Jun want to use sleeping incense to harm us. This is concentration powder. It can resist 100 poisons. Xiao Yin, drink it." Okay. Qin Yin obediently drank the concentration powder. Lin Muyu also drank a bottle. She then lay on the bed and said, "Pretend to be asleep. It won't be too late to kill them when they make a move." Okay. They waited like this for a long time. Finally, there was a rustling sound from outside. The paper window was broken, and a strange fragrance came in. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin continued to pretend to be asleep. Another 10 minutes later, the door was opened with a squeak. Lu Jun and Du Yiming walked in. After closing the door, Lu Jun said, "Are you all dead asleep?" "That's for sure. My 100 poison ecstasy fragrance deserves its reputation." Lu Jun walked forward and shook Lin Muyu's shoulder. "Young hero Lin, wake up." Lin Muyu pretended not to know and continued to sleep. She's really enchanted." Lu Jun chuckled and walked to Qin Yin's bedside. He said with a smile, "This charming little vixen is indeed beautiful after removing her makeup. Let me kiss her first." At this moment, Du Yiming pulled out his long sword and said with a smile, "I'll send you to heaven first, Lin Yu." But at this moment, a golden light flashed, and a glowing golden gourd vine broke out from the ground, wrapping around Du Yiming. Lin Muyu raised her hand and pulled out her iron sword, and with a swing, the blade of the sword was filled with the glow of battle energy. Heaven! Heaven realm! Du Yiming's eyes widened. Before he could finish speaking, his heart was already pierced. And Qin Yin opened her eyes. Lu Jun, who was close to her, was so frightened that he screamed and took a few steps back. At this moment, the cute umbrella dragon rushed over and pounced at Qin Yin with its claws and fangs bared. Buzz! The god-binding chain suddenly lit up and pierced through the umbrella dragon's abdomen, killing it instantly. Pung! Lu Jun broke through the window and actually escaped. Lin Muyu jumped out of the window with her sword in hand. She looked carefully at the surrounding night, but couldn't find Lu Jun's figure. This Lu Jun didn't have a trace of cultivation, so the spirit pulse technique couldn't detect his location. "You're lucky." Lin Muyu snorted coldly and jumped up to the 2nd floor. "Xiao Yin will leave at night. We can't stay here anymore." "Yes." Lin Muyu bent down and searched Du Yiming's body. She immediately found a secret manual in his clothes. The words "Art of Psychic Communication" were written on it in yellowed handwriting. So it was this. She immediately passed it to Qin Yin and went downstairs with her horse. In the corner of the stable, a stallion was peeing. The urine flowed down the top of a person's head. This person was trembling all over as he squatted on the ground and looked into the distance. He said with a trembling voice, "My mother, what kind of people are these? They're too scary. Brother Du, you've sacrificed your life for our fellows in the flower-collecting world. Rest in peace, we will always remember you." Chapter 224. The next morning, the heavy rain had stopped. A strange scene appeared on the ancient path in the clouds. A handsome young man was riding a skinny horse, and beside him was a beautiful girl riding another skinny horse. However, the horse that the girl was riding was actually moving backwards. So fun, Chinin giggled. She held a book in her hand, which was the art of psychic communication. She pressed her snow-white palm on the head of the skinny horse and said with a smile, "Big brother, you guess what the horse is thinking about? It must be thinking about whether it can eat fresh grass or hay for lunch." Lin Muyu replied with a smile. Ah. Qin Yin's mouth opened wide. You. How did you know? Humph, is there even a need to think about it? I can guess it. Lin Muyu led the way in front and said, Xiaoyin, stop torturing this skinny horse. Let it walk normally. At this speed, I'm afraid we won't be able to reach the next inn by night. Am I right? Qinin patted the horse's back and said with a smile, Horse, you can walk normally now. The skinny horse neighed as if it had been pardoned. It turned around and no longer wanted to be tortured by the princess. It shook its head and tail as if it was very proud. After psychic communication, the war horse naturally knew that the girl on its back was someone above tens of thousands of people. It couldn't help but feel that it was no longer a normal horse, but a divine horse of the princess. Xiaoyin, is this art of psychic communication really that magical? Lin Muyu asked. Qinin nodded. You can use the power of soul to communicate with spiritual beasts. However, the prerequisite is that the spiritual beast must be weaker than you. Otherwise, the spiritual beast will not communicate with humans at all. After communicating, you can use the absolute power of soul to conquer the spiritual beast. Naturally, you can tame the umbrella dragon like Du Yiming did. However, Du Yiming is... Qinin blushed and said, that kind of rapist is not worth mentioning. Furthermore, Du Yiming's cultivation is low. This art of psychic communication has a total of 8 scrolls. And Du Yiming has only barely cultivated to the 2nd level. He is still far from the highest level of psychic communication. Is that so? Lin Muyu stretched out her hand and said with a smile. Come Xiaoyin, let me learn as well. Qinin giggled. You also wants to tame spirit beasts? Yes. Lin Muyu nodded. How cool and arrogant it is to have a powerful pet. What do you think, Xiaoyin? Yeah. Qinin pursed her red lips and said. It's a pity that there aren't any powerful spiritual beasts on this official road. Otherwise, we could tame a spiritual beast and test out the power of the spirit communication technique. There's nothing wrong with that. Lin Muyu took the spiritual communication technique and stuffed it into her bosom. She then unfurled the map and said, the ancient path in the clouds runs through the dragon-seeking forest. As long as we leave the area protected by the ancient path in the clouds, we'll be able to enter the dragon-seeking forest. By then, we'll be able to tame any spiritual beast we want. Of course, the prerequisite is that we don't go too deep. Otherwise, I'm afraid we won't even be able to keep our lives. Is that really possible? Qin Yin's beautiful eyes were wide open and filled with hope. Yes, we'll replenish our rations and water at the inn ahead at noon. After that, we can set off for the dragon-seeking forest. We won't take too long of a detour, so it won't affect our journey. Yes, okay. At noon, she replenished half a month's worth of dry rations at the inn in front. It was mostly bread and some water. She also bought an iron pot, a ladle, a simple tent, and so on. She threw them all into her cosmos sack. The iron pot and the white diamond crystals mixed together seemed out of place, but Lin Muyu didn't care about it. She didn't care about trifles if she wanted to achieve great things. In the afternoon, they took a detour into the dragon-seeking forest. Qin Yin waved her purple blade and opened the way in front while Lin Muyu walked behind her. She held the spiritual communication technique book in her hands and carefully studied it. The first volume of the spiritual communication technique, beast language, mainly focused on how to understand the general meaning of the beast language, so that it would be easier to communicate with wild beasts. In the Shattered Cauldron realm, the spirit beasts were all spiritual beings born from the spirit of the earth. They were ever-changing, but they were still the same. The first volume emphasized on the urgency, slowness, length, and shortness of the beast language to analyze the meaning of the beast language. This was considered the first step in communicating with wild beasts. This was simple. Lin Muyu spent less than an hour to memorize it. The second volume, Spiritual Communication Technique. This was the most crucial chapter. It allowed one's spiritual perception to invade the spirit of wild beasts and fuse with the spirit beast's soul. With Qin Yin's cultivation, she had already mastered the spiritual communication technique in the morning. On the other hand, Lin Muyu was even faster. Because his spirit meridian art had already tempered his spirit to the point that it far surpassed other cultivators of the same cultivation level. His spirit was much stronger than Qin Yin's. Therefore, he understood it with just one try. In less than 10 minutes, he could already communicate with his warhorse. The moment he communicated with it, his mind was filled with the smell of some green bristlegrass, clear root grass, horsetail grass, and other plants. That was all the warhorse's mind could think about all day long. It was still early. He looked at the horizon, then looked at Qin Yin, who was innately brandishing her sharp sword and activating her martial soul to cut down the thorns. He couldn't help but smile. It was time for the princess, Qin Yin, to gain some experience. Surviving in the wilderness was originally a way to hone one's willpower. As the princess of the empire, Qin Yin had a lot to bear in the future. The more she gained experience here, the more she could become a wise emperor. Continuing to practice, the third volume, the subjugation technique. The main content of this volume was to use one's own spirit to forcefully subjugate a beast's spirit, making the spirit beast submit to one's will. This feeling was similar to forceful taming. That Du Yiming did not seem to be able to achieve this step, probably because the strength of his spirit was not strong enough. Flipping through it further, there were still 5 more volumes in order: Nurturing Assimilation, Armor Transformation, Sky Piercing, and Spirit Transformation. The more he listened, the more he felt it was amazing. But he could only take it one step at a time. He had to complete the subjugation technique first. After studying it carefully for a while, and memorizing all the words of the spiritual communication technique, Lin Muyu returned the book to Qin Yin. He then sat upon his warhorse and slowly circulated his dou qi, raising the strength of his spirit. Following the subjugation technique's mantra, he practiced it repeatedly. Not long after, he felt a warm current in his mind, as if it had seeped into his entire body. Lin Muyu was secretly delighted. This was the power of beast taming, mentioned in the spiritual communication technique. If he did not have this kind of power, he would not be able to truly tame a spirit beast. It was obvious that the relationship between Du Yiming and the umbrella dragon was not one of taming, but one of dependence. If one truly wanted to tame a spirit beast, they would have to sign a soul contract. Once Du Yiming died, the umbrella dragon would definitely die with its soul scattered. A pity that even after Du Yiming's death, the umbrella dragon still continued to attack Qin Yin. It was enough to show that Du Yiming's mastery in the spiritual communication technique was only at the tip of the iceberg. So the book ended up in the hands of Lin Muyu and Qin Yin. By nightfall, they had traveled far into the dragon-seeking forest. A few spirit beasts had appeared along the way, but they were only wild beasts with a lifespan of over 10 years and did not possess true spirituality. At this moment, Lin Muyu had already cultivated the power of beast taming. She was just waiting to find a spirit beast to test it out. Just then, there was a sudden fluctuation in the spiritual pulse technique. Lin Muyu quickly looked to the right and said, "Xiao Yin, there seems to be something following us over there." "Oh." Qin Yin smiled. "What is it?" "You'll know when you see it." Lin Muyu suddenly raised her arm. Immediately, green vines swept across the ground with a shwa 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 sound, followed by a howl. It was a snow leopard. There was a golden pattern and 2 silver patterns on its forehead. It was a 1,200-year-old spirit beast. At this moment, its limbs were tightly bound by the gourd vines. Lin Muyu's strength far surpassed this 1,200-year-old spirit beast. Her martial soul was exceptionally powerful. Naturally, the snow leopard could not break free from the gourd vines. Qin Yin urged her horse forward and said with a smile, "You wants to tame this snow leopard?" I want to try. Xiao-yin, protect me. Yes. Lin Muyu stood still. He could understand the snow leopard's roar, which was filled with anger. But after a few minutes, the roar became more drawn out and became a cry for mercy. Lin Muyu could not help but laugh out loud. He activated the spiritual pulse technique and sent his spirit sense into the snow leopard's mind. Lin Muyu's body trembled, as if he had entered a different dimension. Roar! From within the chaos, the snow leopard's beast spirit pounced forward, its claws extended. Impudent! Lin Muyu shouted and punched out, sending the snow leopard's beast spirit flying. Lin Muyu chased after it and stepped on its body, letting it howl in pain. Lin Muyu's spirit sense increased, and the power of beast taming transformed into a white ripple that washed over the snow leopard's beast spirit. Not long after, the snow leopard's beast spirit trembled uncontrollably, begging for mercy. Spare me, I am willing to submit. Suddenly, a voice rang out in Lin Muyu's mind. He opened his eyes and saw the snow leopard crawling before him, like a little puppy begging for mercy. It really submitted. Withdrawing his spirit sense, Lin Muyu placed his palm on the snow leopard's head, and a milky white stream of warmth flowed into him. The spirit assimilation of the conqueror manual, allowing one's own soul to completely dominate the spirit beast's mind. That was the true conqueror. A conqueror that the spirit beast would never be able to resist. The snow leopard howled and crawled obediently at its master's feet, even wagging its tail. Qin laughed lightly as she dismounted and stroked the snow leopard's head. She said with a smile, "Big brother you, it's suddenly become so cute." That is. Lin Muyu smiled proudly. But at this time, the snow leopard suddenly howled violently. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws, revealing its ferocious appearance. Traces of blood seeped out of its eyes and mouth, and it fell to the ground, struggling and crawling. It looked as if it was about to die. What's wrong? Lin Muyu turned pale with fright. Qin hurriedly flipped through the Conqueror manual. She raised her head and said, "Big brother you, quickly stop using your spirit sense to invade its mind. This snow leopard's soul is not strong enough to withstand your soul. It's about to die." Lin Muyu did not want to let the snow leopard die in vain, so she quickly withdrew all of her spirit sense. Immediately, the snow leopard's pain disappeared. It ran into the forest with its tail between its legs, not daring to attack Lin Muyu and Qin anymore. She could not help but feel a little disappointed. Lin Muyu clenched her fists and said, "Damn, the cooked duck flew away." Qin smiled lightly and comforted her. "Don't be sad. Just find another spirit beast with a stronger soul, and tame it." Chapter 225. The night sky was filled with stars. The bonfire swayed gently in the cold wind, and a simple tent was built under the rock wall. The bottom of the tent was padded with some hay, but it didn't seem to help. Fortunately, Lin Muyu also bought a quilt and stuffed it into the universe bag. This universe bag was really hard work. Without it, they wouldn't have been able to carry so many things. However, the quilt was slightly thin, so it wasn't possible to rely on it to keep out the cold. Moreover, the tent was quite shabby with holes all over it, and the cold wind blew in. Qin took off her boots and hugged the quilt as she sat in the tent. She looked at the flickering flames outside and said with a smile, "Brother Ayu, it's cold outside. Come in quickly. Keep the flames burning, and you can scare away most of the spirit beasts." Okay. Lin Muyu added a few more thick sticks of firewood before opening the door of the tent. Bringing the cold wind with her, she entered the tent. However, her brows were still furrowed as she looked outside, as if she was still worried. Qin couldn't help but giggle and asked, "What are you worried about? Dragon-seeking forest isn't an ordinary forest." Lin Muyu laughed at herself and said, "Last time, I went to the depths of dragon-seeking forest with Wei Chou, Xia Hosang and the others, and we were almost killed by a spirit beast. I still have lingering fears when thinking about it. We must be extra careful when spending the night in dragon-seeking forest. Those spirit beasts are all smarter than the other." Qin chuckled. "But you also said that it's the depths of dragon-seeking forest, And we're only at the edge of dragon-seeking forest. How strong of a spirit beast can there be? Spirit beasts have a fixed territory. Normally, spirit beasts won't leave their territory unless something big happens. Brother, you know this habit too. Okay. Lin Wuyu touched her nose and smiled. It should be because it's afraid of being chased by the heaven beast that time. Heaven beast? Qinyin suddenly widened her eyes. You encountered a heaven beast? Yes. If it wasn't for the appearance of this heaven beast, Han Xiao wouldn't have died in front of us. When did this happen? The second time was when I hunted 6,000-year-old light-type spirit stones for Yu Qiyan to forge a longsword for you. Lin Wuyu leaned on the hard pillow and put her arms behind her head. She sighed and said, that was a 13,000-year-old heaven beast. We weren't its match at all. We were lucky to escape alive that time. Oh my God, a heaven beast that's more than 10,000 years old. That's a legendary sacred beast. Qinyin was slightly angry as she said, I didn't know about this at all. It must be that bastard supervisor Che Qiong's idea. Humph, I'll definitely punish her after we return to the Zetian Palace. No need. Lin Wuyu tilted her head and looked at her. Xiaoyin, the Imperial Guard's mission is to protect Zetian Palace Hall. And the Eagle Guard's duty is to provide some precious spirit stones for the Imperial family. You might not know about Che Qiong ordering the Eagle Nest camp to patrol, but Father definitely knows. So don't pursue this matter. It's already in the past anyway. Qinyin was stunned. She gently moved her body and looked at Lin Wuyu apologetically with her beautiful eyes. Like a little girl who had done something wrong, she whispered, Big brother you, please forgive Father. He's the Emperor, and when he gave the order, he was sitting on the Emperor's throne. I believe he didn't mean to disregard your life. Okay, I know. Lin Wuyu smiled. I know the rules of this world, and I'll learn to follow them. But Xiaoyin, if you become the Emperor in the future, will you also disregard life like this? Qinyin shook her head forcefully. No, I promise. Okay, that's good. Lin Wuyu closed her eyes and said, Then in the future, on your path to becoming the Emperor, anyone who makes an enemy of you will be my enemy. I promise, I will support you with all my strength until the day you become the Emperor. Will you be there on the day I become the Emperor? Qinyin asked faintly. Yes, I definitely will. Lin Wuyu nodded. Okay, that's good. Qinyin gently held Lin Wuyu's hand and pressed it against her snow-white face. She closed her eyes and said, I hope we can be like this forever. Don't let power taint our relationship. I won't. Okay. Not long after, Qinyin entered Dreamland. She still held Lin Wuyu's left hand in her arms and held it tightly. She slept peacefully like a beautiful elf born from the forest, making people feel infatuated and intoxicated. It was almost dawn, but it was still dark outside. Lin Wuyu had also fallen asleep. The bonfire crackled and burned the last of the wood, leaving only a wisp of smoke floating in the mountains. Huff! In the distance, a pack of wolves bared their teeth and mucus slowly dripped from their mouths. Their brown eyes stared fixedly at the simple and crude tent. To them it was a delicious meal. The alpha wolf's eyes faintly glowed with a golden luster. It had already gained intelligence. It let out a low growl as it looked into the distance. Its eyes were filled with greed. It could sense that the two people in the tent were faintly emanating spiritual energy. To it, this was a delicious meal. When a spirit beast devours the bodies of humans with cultivation, it can also greatly increase and accelerate its lifespan and cultivation. Lifespan was only a standard to evaluate a spiritual beast's strength. A 10,000-year-old spiritual beast might not really have lived for 10,000 years. Perhaps 3,000 years of these 10,000 years were provided by humans. Roar! The alpha wolf suddenly roared and led more than 30 wolves down the mountain, heading straight for the tent. In his sleep, Lin Wuyu's spiritual meridian technique produced a violent fluctuation. He suddenly woke up and quickly retracted his hand. He shook Qinyin's fragrant shoulder and said, Xiaoyin, don't sleep anymore. A spiritual beast is sneaking up on us. Wake up quickly. Okay. Qinyin quickly sat up and put on her little boots. At the same time, She took out a blue space bag from her waist and took out an exquisite 7-string jade zither. What are you going to do with the zither? Lin Muyu asked in surprise. It's a pack of swift wolves that attacked us. Are you going to smash them to death with the zither? Qinin chuckled. You'll find out later. All right. Lin Muyu carried the sword and walked out of the tent. The pack of wolves in the distance had already scurried over. There were more than 30 of them, and they were aggressive. The alpha wolf was a swift wolf with golden fur at the tip. It looked very different. There were 3 golden patterns on its head, and it was a 3,000-year-old spiritual beast. The rest of the swift wolves lived between 100 to 2,000 years, and they were not very strong. The dragon spirit sword softly let out a sword cry, as if it was cheering for the upcoming slaughter. At this time, Qinin also carried the 7-string jade zither to Lin Muyu's side. Her body was surrounded by dense battle energy, and the milky white battle energy suddenly floated in front of her like a light mist. Holding the 7-string jade zither, Qin Yin's clothes fluttered as she stood in front of the zither. Strands of golden god-binding chains martial soul lingered around her graceful body, like a golden curtain. At this time, although Qin Yin was wearing a simple young girl's attire, she was like a fairy descending to the mortal world. This kind of temperament and aura was not something an ordinary woman could compare to. Big brother, you don't make a move first. Watch me. Qin Yin confidently puffed out her chest. She was still young, but she had already developed very well. Her pair of peaks looked as if they were about to burst out of her clothes. Lin Muyu couldn't help but take a second look. Her heart was shaken, and she hurriedly used the spirit pulse technique to control her mind. Roar! A few giant wolves roared and rushed over. Each of them opened their bloody mouths wide, ready to pounce on Yang Ling. At this time, Qin Yin suddenly raised her hand, and a sharp zither sound swept past. Carrying the power of the god-binding chain's martial soul, it turned into a golden sound wave that directly attacked the wolves. Pung pung pung. The sound did not stop. 3 wolves howled miserably as they died in the wilderness. They didn't even have the strength to fight back. Qin Yin smiled sweetly at Lin Muyu. She raised her hand again, and another golden sound wave flew out. The zither sound was sharp, and it quickly killed 4 wolves. At this rate, Lin Muyu really didn't need to do anything. Just Qin Yin alone was enough to deal with this group of wolves. This was taught by Chu, right? Lin Muyu asked with a smile. Yes. Qin Yin nodded her head, but her hands didn't stop moving. She smiled faintly and said, as the princess tutor, Elder Chu used the god-binding shackles martial soul's power and the ingenuity of the demonic noise fist to create a sound wave attack martial art. By combining the power of the god-binding shackles with sound, the lethality of the attack will be greatly increased. Yes, Lin Muyu secretly praised. The god-binding chains was the #1 martial soul in the world. Its powerful attack power was indeed incomparable to other martial souls. Fortunately, her green gourd walked the path of defense. If it had walked the path of offense, it would not have lasted more than 3 rounds against the god-binding chains. This was probably the principle of everyone having their own strengths. Very quickly, more than 30 wolves were almost finished off by Qin Yin. The leader of the wolves was also injured by the sound wave attack, and it was about to limp away. Qin Yin hugged her zither and said with a smile, Big brother, let's catch this 300-year golden crag swift wolf. Xiao Yin wants to tame it as a pet. Okay. Lin Muyu raised her sword and chased after it. Every step she took was like a meteor falling to the ground. The golden crag swift wolf would not be able to outrun her even if it was not injured. Swoosh swoosh. Gourd vines that glowed with golden light burst out of the ground and quickly wrapped around the golden crag swift wolf's body. It howled in pain and flailed its legs wildly, tearing apart a few vines. However, Lin Muyu was already in front of it. She raised the hilt of her sword and smashed it into the golden crag swift wolf's head. Bang! It immediately became obedient. It howled in pain and collapsed into the gourd vines. Like a puppy, it begged for mercy from Lin Muyu and Qin Yin. Qin Yin giggled. Don't worry, we won't kill you. We just want you to come with us. Chapter 226. Qinin closed her eyes, and the god-binding chains wrapped around her like a golden dress. The chains fused with the beast-taming power, and strengthened the bond between her and the gold-crag swift wolf. Woo-woo! At first, the gold-crag swift wolf fought back fiercely, but in less than 10 minutes, it was wagging its tail and licking its ears to please its beautiful master, Qinin. This grandson. Lin Muyu couldn't help but chuckle. Qinin slowly opened her eyes and smiled. Big brother, you, remove the gourd vines. The contract is complete. Okay. Lin Muyu waved her hand, and the gourd vines disappeared into the wind. The gold-crag swift wolf wagged its tail, and pounced into its mistress' arms. It even extended its tongue, and tried to lick Qinin's face. Lin Muyu wasn't happy about this. She quickly pushed its head away and said sourly, You beast, let go of my Xiaoyin. Qinin burst into laughter. Her cheeks were flushed with a beautiful blush. However, the gold-crag swift wolf wasn't happy. It immediately bared its sharp teeth and bit down on Lin Muyu's fist. Lin Muyu opened her hand, and the golden gourd martial soul quickly condensed in her palm. The gold-crag swift wolf immediately cowered and whimpered. It wagged its tail and approached Qinin from another direction. Although the gold-crag swift wolf looked strong and fierce, it was like a cute pet at this moment. Qinin's heart almost melted. She smiled and said, Big brother, you don't bother with this little wolf. Then you can't let it lick your face. Lin Muyu said jealously. I don't want. Don't want what? Qinin looked at him with a mischievous smile. Lin Muyu originally wanted to say, I don't want to lick the same place as a wolf, but thinking that it might offend and disrespect the princess, she changed her words and said, I don't want Xiaoyin to get infected by some wild animal disease. Qinin was a little disappointed. Oh, that's all? What else do you want? Lin Muyu countered. Qinin's face immediately turned red. Let's go. Let's pack our things and continue on our way. Otherwise, we don't know when we'll reach Muyu City. Grandfather might be waiting anxiously. He doesn't know that you're going to see him in person. You're right. Thus, the team's formation changed once more. 2 humans, 2 mounts, and a golden rock swift wolf rode beside Qinin. After communicating with the golden rock swift wolf, Qinin seemed to be able to read the golden rock swift wolf's thoughts at any time. She pursed her lips and held back her laughter as she said, Big brother, you, do you know what the little wolf was thinking just now? What was it thinking? It was thinking that these 2 skinny horses must not be delicious. There's too little meat, and they're all bones. They're not even enough to fill the gaps between its teeth. Really? Lin Muyu tilted her head and looked at the golden rock swift wolf. She laughed. This beast actually wants to eat our horses. Humph, if you dare touch a hair on these 2 horses, I promise I won't kill you. The golden rock swift wolf looked up at Lin Muyu and couldn't help but clamp its tail between its legs. It whimpered and leaned against Qinin's leg. Qinin giggled. Do you know what it's thinking now? Nothing good. That's right. It's thinking that although this man is very strong, he's too ugly. He doesn't meet the aesthetic standards of werewolves at all. He doesn't even have a bit of fat on his belly. That's the aesthetic standards of food, right? Lin Muyu smiled. This old man's 9-pack is not for nothing. How can there be fat on my belly? That's enough. Qinin's face was flushed. Although she had never seen Lin Muyu naked, just thinking about it was enough to make her heart beat faster. She didn't dare to think about it anymore. Just like that, 2 people and 1 wolf walked on the mountain road until evening. Looking at the map, they were about 5 or 6 days away from Muyu City. They weren't in a hurry, so they walked slowly. It was getting late, so they should reduce their travel at night. After all, there were too many dangers here. They could be attacked by a pack of wolves at any time. Dozens of wolves were fine, but if there were thousands of them, then it would be difficult to deal with them. Although Lin Muyu and Qinin's cultivation was already at the peak of the younger generation, their physical strength and battle chi were limited. If they encountered thousands of wolves, then they might die. The iron pot was propped up above the bonfire. Qinin was kneeling at the side, seasoning the wild vegetables into the meat soup. Lin Muyu, on the other hand, had chopped some dry firewood and returned with it in her arms. At this moment, a faint sound came from the side of the mountain. It seemed to be the sound of a branch being stepped on. Someone is coming. Lin Wuyu put down the firewood and whispered. It looks like they're coming with bad intentions. Who could it be? Qinin didn't look up. She only slightly increased her battle chi. And the god-binding lock was not released. Who knows? Let's wait for them to make a move first. Condense your aura shield. And I know. She smiled sweetly. Don't worry, Xiaoyin can protect herself. Lin Wuyu naturally put down her guard. There were a total of 24 human auras on the mountain, and the strongest was only at the first level of the Earth realm. Even if this group of people attacked together, they might not be a match for Qinin, not to mention herself. However, those people didn't seem to attack too early. They probably wanted to use bows and arrows to attack from afar. The mountain was 200 meters away from here. Their arm strength shouldn't be able to reach 200 meters, right? But at this moment, the people hiding in the wild forest attacked. Whoosh! A sharp arrow pierced through the air. The arrow was imbued with true energy, and it still maintained its speed and power when it was only 10 meters away from Lin Wuyu and Qinin. As expected, there was someone capable. However, Lin Wuyu had long since seen through this arrow. She took a step forward and appeared in front of Qinin. Her palms were covered in battle armor, and her energy swept out. With a loud bang, the arrowhead and the arrow shaft were smashed into pieces. The battle chi dissipated in the air and spun rapidly. On the mountain, the sound of swords being unsheathed could be heard. A group of people also stood up. They were all dressed like mercenaries. One of them held a spear and shouted, "Charge down there and kill those two. Take their heads and you'll be rewarded 5,000 Jin coins. Brothers, it's time to get rich. Kill them." Qinin continued to pick and wash the wild vegetables and put them into the pot. She smiled and said, "Big brother, do you need me to do it?" "No need." Lin Wuyu chuckled coldly. Another group of mercenaries who value money more than their lives. How annoying. Qinin chuckled. This is a difficult world. Jin coins can help people survive, so it's naturally very attractive. These people are only killing for money. Perhaps, there's no need to kill them all. Big brother, please spare their lives. Just don't let them continue to harm others. Lin Wuyu slowly pulled out her dragon spirit sword. Then I'll destroy their seas of vital energy so they can't continue to cultivate, but they'll still have the strength to farm and graze. Is that fine? That's for the best. Remember to capture one of them and find out who hired them to kill us. All right. At this moment, the Goldrock Quickwolf beside Qinin was howling with rage. Its golden fur was already standing on end, and it looked like it was going to charge out and feast on the two of them at any moment. Qinin reached out and patted the wolf's head with a smile. Stay here and don't move. Big brother, you will take care of them. The swift wolf immediately stopped howling. It wagged its tail and ears and began to flatter its mistress. At this moment, Lin Wuyu had already rushed out. The walls of the golden gourd quickly protected her body. After deflecting a few arrows, she leaped up and slashed down from the sky with her sword. With a crack, a mercenary's shield was split in half. At the same time, the blade of her sword trembled slightly. An array of sword chi pierced into the mercenary's sea of vital energy. Ah! The mercenary clutched his stomach and rolled on the ground, howling miserably. True energy leaked out, and his cultivation was crippled just like that. Lin Wuyu's movement technique was exquisite. He shuttled back and forth between the crowd, and the swords like a bolt of lightning. In the blink of an eye, dozens of mercenaries had their sea of vital energy destroyed. On the other hand, Lin Wuyu still had a lazy look on her face. She raised her hand and sheathed the dragon spirit sword. She said indifferently, "All right, your cultivation has been crippled. Go home and farm. Don't come out and harm people." As she spoke, she lifted the mercenary with the longbow and said coldly, "Tell me, who hired you to kill me?" The mercenary's face was full of anger. He said, "You bastard! You destroyed my sea of vital energy, and you still want to trick me? In your dreams." We, the fierce tiger mercenary group, We'll never reveal any information about our employer. Is that so? Lin Muyu took out a diamond coin from his cosmos sack and shook it. The diamond coin glowed alluringly under the setting sun. He smiled and said, "If you tell me, I'll give you this diamond coin." As expected, the integrity of the Fierce Tiger mercenary group was only worth 1,000 gold-yen coins. The mercenary leader's face was filled with a conflicted expression. Lin Muyu added, "Your cultivation has already been crippled. If you take these 1,000 jinin coins back home, at least you'll have something to answer for. Otherwise, you'll have nothing left. As the leader, shouldn't you spare a thought for your brothers?" Finally, the mercenary leader relented. He said, "It's a wealthy man called Lu Jun. He hired us to kill 2 siblings. One is Lin Yu, and the other is Lin Yin. He said that by killing you, he would be able to avenge his close friend, Du Yiming. You can look for Lu Jun if you have any grudges or grievances. It has nothing to do with us." "Got it. Hurry up and scram." Lin Muyu threw the diamond coin on the ground as compensation. Otherwise, these mercenaries wouldn't even have enough money to buy a cow when they returned home. Lin Muyu frowned as she watched the mercenaries leave. She returned to Qin Yin's side and said, "Xiao Yin, we shouldn't stay here for long. Let's travel through the night after we finish eating. We'll reach the Daojiang River's tributary about 50 li ahead. We can set up camp by the river and sleep until noon tomorrow." Qin Yin nodded with a smile. Yes, I'll listen to you. Come and try my soup. How is it?" Lin Muyu tasted it and her face turned green. "Is it good?" "Delicious. Why is your voice hoarse? You'll have to ask how much salt you put in." "I'm in the wrong." "No, you're not in the wrong. It's the salt that's wrong." Chapter 227. Feeling thirsty. Lin Muyu rode on the skinny horse and continued on her way. As they were in the dragon-seeking forest at night, she did not have to worry about exposing her identity. Lin Muyu immediately used the secret art of sword kinesis with fire. The dragon spirit sword blazed brightly as it flew in front, opening up a path. Lin Muyu brought Qin Yin along as she sped forward. 3 hours later, they arrived at a river basin. A cool breeze blew, bringing with it the smell of river water. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin led the horse along the river slowly. They could even see the weeds sprouting on the ground. This meant that spring was coming, and the harsh winter was about to pass. Rice River was a large river in the imperial capital's Mother River Basin. It was formed from the melting of the snowy mountains in the north of the Seven Seas Province. It flowed through the Seven Seas Province, North Ridge Province, South Seongnan Province, and Heaven's Pivot Province. It seemed that the humans of the mainland were born around the Rice River Basin. This was the birthplace of human civilization in this plain. Now that they had entered the Cloud Province, the Rice River in front of them was just a branch of the Rice River. It was already 1,000 meters wide. One could imagine how magnificent the main stream of the Rice River was. A towering tree soared into the sky, standing straight at the edge of Daojiang. Lin Muyu pointed and smiled. "Shall we camp under this tree tonight?" "Yes." Qin Yin nodded and smiled. "Just right. It's convenient to get water here. We don't have to walk too far to get water tomorrow morning." "Yes." After setting up the tent, it seemed that the humidity in the air had increased by a lot. It was far less cold than in the dragon-seeking forest. They started a bonfire and opened a small corner of the tent. Lin Muyu leaned on the pillow and looked at the Rice River. She suddenly asked, "Xiao Yin, why are there no boats on the Rice River?" Qin Yin thought for a moment and said, "I've read about the Rice River in the Cloud Province in the past. It seems that there are some water monsters living in the Rice River Basin. They often make boats. Therefore, only some shallow water fishing boats and some imperial warships dare to pass through the Rice River Basin in the Twilight Rain City." "Is that so?" "Yeah, that's what I heard, but I don't know if there are any water monsters." "Then go to bed early. Leave the Goldrock Swift Wolf outside to keep watch." "And all right." Lin Muyu covered herself with the quilt and slowly fell asleep. She could hear Qin Yin's gentle breathing. It seemed that Qin Yin was used to hugging Lin Muyu's arm to sleep. He chuckled inwardly and didn't say anything else. With the 3,000-year-old golden rock swift wolf guarding the perimeter, it should be relatively safe. The art of psychic mastery was indeed a good thing. If Qin Yin's soul could tame a 3,000-year-old golden rock swift wolf, then wouldn't his own soul be able to tame a 5,000-year-old golden rock swift wolf? Thinking of this, he actually felt a little excited. The next morning, Qin Yin woke up early and went to get some water for cooking. However, Lin Muyu was still worried and followed her to the riverside. She saw that the river was turbulent, and there were even huge waves that were several meters high in the center. I'm going to cook. This time, I'll make sure to use less salt, Qin Yin said with a smile. Okay, go ahead. Lin Muyu remained by the riverside and gazed into the distance. There were 7 or 8 huge whirlpools in the middle of the river, but they made him feel a little uneasy. His spiritual pulse art could also detect faint fluctuations of spiritual energy, as if there was something hidden in the depths of the river. Could it really be, as Qin Yin said, that there was a water monster? Whoosh whoosh. One of the huge whirlpools was at least 100 meters in diameter. Icy air rose from the center and quickly dissipated in the warm wind. The energy that Lin Muyu sensed was in this whirlpool. What exactly was it? He couldn't be sure. He couldn't jump into the river with his sword. Not to mention that his swimming skills weren't that good. If there really was a water monster in the river, he would be courting death. Awoo. The golden crag swift wolf was like a big dog lying by the river, howling at the water. This made Lin Muyu even more certain that there was something hiding in the river. He patted the golden crag swift wolf's head and said, "Little wolf, let's go back. We shouldn't stay by the river anymore." Woo woo. The swift wolf followed him back with its tail between its legs. Did you find anything? Qin Yin's soup was almost done. Nothing. Lin Muyu shook his head and said, "Let's hurry up and eat. After we finish eating, we'll leave immediately. Don't rush along the river. It's not safe here." Could there really be a water monster? It's hard to say. All right, hurry up and eat. Xiao Yin will get you some soup. Holding the big bowl, Lin Muyu wolfed down the meat soup. His body warmed up, and he suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of satisfaction. However, at this moment, the howling of the golden crag swift wolf came from the river. It sounded like it was wailing and full of fear. Damn it, why did that stupid wolf still go over? She hurriedly put down the bowl and unsheathed the dragon spirit sword. With a clang, Lin Muyu summoned her gourd martial soul and rushed over. Qin Yin also carried her zither and followed behind. The golden rock swift wolf was already howling miserably in the water. Its body had been entangled by strange, thorny arms, and it was sinking into the water. Lin Muyu immediately raised her hand and shouted, "Entangle!" Golden gourd vines rose from the river and pulled the golden crag swift wolf's sinking body. At the same time, it struggled to send the wolf to the shore. They had to leave the river, or else Lin Muyu wouldn't have the confidence to win. As the golden crag swift wolf rushed to the shore, a huge creature was dragged out of the river. It was a water monster that looked like a hydra. Jie! The water monster roared loudly. However, upon closer inspection, one could see that the real head was only the one in the middle. It looked like a dragon's head and was dark blue in color. The other 8 limbs were covered in thorns and sharp blades. Even though the golden crag swift wolf was covered in golden flaming armor, it was still covered in blood. Qin Yin's heart ached when she saw this. She immediately sent out a sound wave attack. With Qin Yin's help, the golden attack landed on the water monster's body. The water monster flew into a rage out of humiliation and rushed to the shore. This time, it was even more certain that this was a horned dragon that lived at the bottom of the river. It was an ice attribute spirit beast. There were 5 golden patterns on its head. It was a 5,000-year-old spirit beast. However, this thing didn't look like a dragon at all. Instead, it looked more like a disgusting and terrifying monster. It was a complete and utter water monster. It's the frost-armored dragon. Qin Yin's eyes turned cold. Big brother, you, be careful. The frost-armored dragon's restraining ability is very strong. Once you are bound by its blade-like arms, it will be very difficult to escape. I know. One could imagine it just by looking at the sorry state the golden crag swift wolf was in. However, if it was only a 5,000-year-old spirit beast, then there was nothing to fear. 1. The dragon's spirit sword spun rapidly under the cover of the raging flames. The moment it appeared, it used fire to control the sword. Lin Muyu raised her hand and used the wall of the gourd to block the frost-armored dragon's blade-like arms. Blood surged in her heart as she punched out with her demonic sound fist. Pung. The horned dragon's body trembled slightly. However, it didn't die from the injury. Instead, it swung its blade-like arms at Lin Muyu even more ferociously. The tips of these blade-like arms were like long spears and possessed astonishing destructive power. In the blink of an eye, a deep hole was left in the wall of the gourd. Lin Muyu felt her scalp go numb just looking at it. At this moment, the dragon's spirit sword had already launched its attack. With 3 consecutive slashes, 3 of the frost-armored dragon's blade-like arms were severed. Green blood splattered everywhere. It was an extremely disgusting sight. Kiki. Amidst the screams, the frost-armored dragon suddenly pounced forward. Its abdomen suddenly opened, revealing a huge mouth full of sharp teeth. With a hua sound, it enveloped Lin Muyu's body. Big brother you. Qin Yin was so anxious that tears were about to fall from her eyes. Since Lin Muyu had been swallowed, she didn't dare to use sound waves to attack. That would hurt Lin Muyu. Fortunately, at this moment, a golden light broke through the frost-armored dragon's abdomen. The dragon spirit sword had directly cut through the frost armor. Lin Muyu's entire body was wrapped in doqi armor. How could she be killed by a mere 5,000-year-old spiritual beast? She leaped into the air and stood in the wind. With a wave of her finger, the surrounding river water rose up and condensed into water swords under the guidance of the sword manipulation technique. In the next moment, the sword shot out in a concentrated manner. Sword manipulation technique. Pung pung pung. The frost-armored dragon's hard armor was riddled with holes. Miserable howls rang out incessantly. In the blink of an eye, it was riddled with holes. But with the support of its strong vitality, it actually moved its body rapidly towards the river water. It seemed to be trying to escape. You still want to leave? Lin Muyu was in such a sorry state. How could she let the frost-armored dragon go so easily? She grabbed the long sword and slashed down from the sky. Another 2 blade-like arms were severed. The 9-headed snake had become a 5-headed snake. At this moment, Qin Yin suddenly raised her sword and attacked. Her sword suddenly landed on the side of Lin Muyu. With a pung sound, the energy of the god-binding chain shattered. At the same time, there was a strange howl. That was another horned dragon that had tried to attack Lin Muyu. It was the second frost-armored dragon. Through the spirit pulse technique, countless powerful auras were surging up from the bottom of the river. Lin Muyu's heart turned cold. She hurriedly wrapped her arms around Qin Yin's slender waist and activated the falling star steps to leave the riverside. Let's go, it's not good. Qin Yin was stunned. She turned around and saw numerous dark blue heads poking out from the river surface. Her scalp went numb. No one would have thought that there would be so many frost-armored dragons living at the bottom of the river. So many. Run for your life, and you still dare to lament. Luckily, the campsite was about 500 meters away from the river. The murderous frost-armored dragons only chased them for about 100 meters before retreating. It was as if they had also sensed that the shore was not their territory. There are more than 100 of them, Qin Yin said with lingering fear. Most of them have a lifespan of 2,000 to 4,000 years. It's so scary. I finally know why Grandpa issued a fishing ban and forbade fishermen from fishing in Daojiang. Lin Muyu's heart went numb. Such a scary mother river. It's too inhumane. Pack up the tent and let's go. A single frost-armored dragon was already so scary. Lin Muyu was very sure that if she had jumped into the river to fight it, she would have died without a corpse. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.